Yes. Sponsored content remove ads? Do you have a name? Dumbstruck, the pink candle dragon scratched its head. I think I do. What is it again? How waited patiently for it to recall its name. But as he waited, he noticed that the scales on the candle dragon's head were about to be scratched off. I think my name is Little Pink. It finally remembered. The simple form of its name reminded How of his mother's naming habit. Could the candle dragon be one of his mother's pets? From the images of his tracing spell, his mother once said that every god of creation would carry a candle dragon as his or her pet. She used to have one, but it died during her sleep. Sponsored content remove ads? Perhaps the candle dragon survived, after all, and got stranded in the desert. However, if it used to be his mother's pet, it should be able to recognize the lady in white. Its confusion clearly showed that it did not know her at all. At that point, many questions in Hao's head remained unanswered. Hao took the time to have a rest beneath the ground. When they resurfaced, the lady was no longer there, and the temperature in the desert rose to an unbearable scale once again. His spiritual power had partly recovered, so he quickly worked on the wizardry barrier so that they could break free. For the past 8 days, he had been remarkably persevering, but not a clue had been found about how to break out of the place. Sponsored content remove ads? He had even tried to go underground. Along with the candle dragon, they traveled for thousands of miles beneath the ground, but to their utter disappointment, they still resurfaced to a vast plain land full of sand. Every way that he thought possible turned out to be useless. It seemed that there was truly no escape from the desert. Half a month flew by, and Hao became dispirited. There was no water and no food in the desert. Even though his soul could survive without any food, he could not take the heat with the sun beating down on him. Eventually, his powerful soul slowly wasted away under the scorching sun while the heat had caused him a number of repercussions. Fatigued, he now felt suffocated when they were traveling underground. All he could feel was his head spinning as the pressure became unbearable to him in merely a few minutes. However, he would rise to the ground, only to feel like leaving again. The candle dragon noticed that his condition was deteriorating and was concerned. "Brother are you going to die? I tried to save a god before, but he did not last beyond 20 days and was immortalized. His soul did not survive." Sponsored content remove ads? Shut up. Hao snapped. As the master of the heavenly law, it would be a shame for him to die in a place like this. However, there was no way he could escape, and time was only making him weaker and reducing his chances. The desert was like a monster that devoured any living being that was trapped within it, and it did not seem to give them any chance of escaping. The candle dragon often felt dispirited by the loneliness, but somehow the heat never affected its strength. Perhaps, it was the only species that could survive in the barren land. Everything else would slowly perish. Regrettably, no help was coming for it, and there was no way it could make it out alone. It looked at the sun by the edge of the sky with deep regret. It would not have negotiated with Fan Qianxi's candle dragon if Hao was going to be stranded here and die. His soul had been away long enough, and his parents must surely be very worried for him. Hao could only hope that they were facing the change as well. After all, he had already prepared them for the day that he would mysteriously disappear. Maybe they thought that his soul had already returned to where he belonged. Perhaps, they would not even go looking for him and let his little body rot away in the absence of a soul. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Note: please download the sponsor's game to support us. Chapter 2964. The Obsession. 4. All of his thoughts at that moment were negative, so Hao naturally found himself quite depressed. One day, some visitors disrupted their solitary time while Hao was leaning against the candle dragon and trying to get asleep. A man and a woman showed up, both with seemingly excellent kung fu, at least the level of a mighty immortal. They looked like a couple, as the man had never stopped stroking the woman's waist. The woman enjoyed resting her face on the man's chest too, though rather bashfully. Hao could finally feel what the candle dragon felt. The sight of visitors certainly excited him. However, he decided to hold back and observe them first. Meanwhile, The candle dragon just stayed where it was and did not bother. It was invisible to everyone, anyway. Its presence would not make any difference. It was quite bothered by the heat in the desert, so seeing two visitors cuddling with one another was quite baffling to it. Don't they feel warm? It turned to ask Di Hao. Di Hao gave its scaled skin a gentle tap and signaled it to be quiet. The couple did not seem very eager to explore the place. After a quick look around, they seemed only to want to make sure that they were alone. Once they determined that the area was clear, the man made the first move and gave the woman a hard squeeze. Baby, we are finally at a place where no one can disturb us. Let's get hot. Soon, the man began to pant vigorously. He then gave the woman a series of long kisses. Both of them embraced passionately in the desert as they rolled all over on the sandy ground, while eagerly undressing one another. Di Hao never saw it coming. Awkwardly, he decided to take the pink candle dragon away from the scene. Let's take a walk somewhere else. Nevertheless, the pink candle dragon was now intrigued, so it refused to go. Hey, what are they doing? Are they fighting? At least they are aware that the place is hot. They are stripped down to nothing. Di Hao did not have an answer for its confusion. With a spell, 2 pieces of handkerchiefs were pulled out from his sleeves to blindfold the pink candle dragon. Little Pink, if you refuse to go, I will never talk to you again, he threatened. The threat seemed to work as the pink candle dragon followed him right away. They did not go far. In fact, they stopped when they could no longer see or hear anything. The pink candle dragon did not think it was a big deal at all. They are just 2 people messing around. Is there anything inappropriate for us to see? I have seen many of them like that. Some started to fight as soon as they came in. Some took their time and fought later. That was a remarkable piece of information to Di Hao. He suddenly thought of something. Were they all couples? A man and a woman? Yes, they all came in pairs, the pink candle dragon answered with a nod. Di Hao finally had a clue. Only couples were allowed to enter the desert. Di Hao was not involved in any relationship yet, so without the pink candle dragon's interruption, he would never have made it in here. The realization prompted him to give the pink candle dragon a strange look. Innocently, the candle dragon had no idea what was going on in Di Hao's head. About an hour later, it was finally time for them to head back. The couple was already done with their activity and were just sitting face to face and having a talk. From their conversations, Di Hao learned about things from the outside world. The continent was called the Collateral Shenwu Land. The desert lay within the very center of the continent, which happened to be a forbidden area for the inhabitants of the land. In the desert, the sun never set, but the course of the sun remained normal in the outside world. The sun and the moon would rise and set as usual. Life used to flourish on the continent, and the land used to be ablaze with blossoming trees and flowers. It was a lively place where crops continued to grow, and animals lived freely in the wild. All courses of life went on undisturbed. However, as the desert expanded, its unrelenting heat affected the entire continent. Crops were unable to survive and died. Rivers dried, and life was becoming tougher by the day. Many powerful men were dispatched to take a look at the desert, but it was difficult for them to get past the barrier. Even when they did, they never returned. In time, the desert became a deadly territory that only consumed the lives of the people who entered. Not another man was ever sent in again. Sponsored content remove ads? Eventually, the king realized that only couples were allowed to enter the desert, especially those who had gone through hardships together. So, the king made a rule. When a particular relationship was not blessed, the couple could take the challenge and visit the desert together. If they could make it out alive, the king would personally bless their union and publicly announce them as a newlywed, so no one was allowed to break them apart ever again. In addition, the king would even reward them with money and assets. The couple was the perfect example. They were related as a master and a disciple. The man was a master, known as Fu Xiaotian. The woman was his disciple, known as Ling. A relationship between a master and a disciple was generally forbidden. Moreover, Fu Xiaotian already had a wife. Sponsored content remove ads? His wife was from a family that was well known for spells and wizardry. They used to be apprentices together in the past. In order for him to inherit the secret magic and spells of the family, he decided to pursue her rather consistently. His gesture finally moved her, and they soon became married. He became the son-in-law of the family and obtained what he had always wanted. Fu Tianxiao fully utilized his wife's network to expand his own business. Soon, he emerged as a great man admired by many. Many disciples were recruited in the name of his success. He played his role well by showering his wife with love and being a good husband in public. Generally, he was known as a man who was obsessed with his wife and possessed a reputation that was praised by many. However, some people badmouthed him as an idler who only sponged on the wealth of his wife's family. Eventually, he grew sick of the rumors, which consequently made him grow to repel his own wife. Secretly, he started to cheat on her with his disciples. Sponsored content remove ads? In order for him to get rid of his wife without making a bad name for himself, he made a plan to frame his wife for cheating on him with one of his disciples. The news spread in the town quickly, making his wife look like a horrible woman for cheating. He did not punish his wife away, nor did he mention about divorcing her. Publicly, he addressed the affair by stating that it was his fault for neglecting his wife, thus leading her to commit in something foolish. He even begged them to forgive his wife and stop talking about it. His public speech had gained him even more popularity by being a good man. His wife, on the other hand, was widely defamed and mistreated by the public. He continued to gather pity by getting drunk every day or bursting into tears as soon as he talked about the affair. All of his efforts added up and made him a good, loving man who had his heart shattered by his cheating wife. Meanwhile, his wife's reputation was utterly damaged to the point where she could no longer tolerate the rumors, so she ended her own life. Sadly, he buried his wife after a grand funeral and forbade anyone from talking bad about her again. He vowed to kill anyone that made the situation worse. Sponsored content remove ads? From then on, his reputation as a good husband was well established in society. Everyone thought of him as a loving and responsible man instead of a worthless idler. He also inherited the entire fortune from his wife's family, thus putting him in the prime of his life. The only thing that he was unsatisfied with was his affair with his disciple, Ling. She inspired into almost all of his bad doings. She loved him wholeheartedly, and the only thing that she had ever asked was for him to marry her, or she would tell everyone what he had done in the past. In order for him to marry her, he agreed to venture into the desolate desert. Usually, they would not do anything too revealing in public, but now that they were alone with no one around to judge them, it was finally time for them to express their yearning desire for one another. After the brief chat, they made love to each other again. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Note: please download the sponsor's game to support us. Chapter 2966, The Couple's Challenge 2. The Master, being more senior and experienced, should lead the way. Since he was no longer holding back, she decided to let go of all her worries and savor every moment of their union. As a result, her moans of pleasure could be heard even from afar. What a disgusting couple! Di Hao expressed his revulsion from behind a sandy hill. Both the man and the woman were powerful beings. Fu Xiaotian was already at the level of a great deity. As for the woman, she was gifted with a talent in magic and spells. After inheriting the secret powers of Fu Xiaoshan's deceased wife, she was almost the level of a great deity as well. Both of them were the strongest people in the entire continent. Otherwise, they would not simply propose to risk their lives in the desert. In their opinion, if the desert had a way in, there must be a way out. Before going in, the two of them had done their research. They believed that the desert must be inhabited by one or more beasts, known to the people as the Demon of Droughts. The former explorers were probably unfamiliar with the geography of the desert or were unable to defeat the demon, so none of the explorers returned. Fu Xiaotian grew up in a desert, so he knew about its natural features. In his early years, he once fought and got rid of a drought demon, so he knew how to fight one. Confidently, he thought that a visit to the mysterious desert would not be a big deal. In fact, they even had time to make love rather than explore the place. After a while, The couple finally stopped their intercourse activity and got up from the sand, though panting for more. This place is so hot. I am drenched in sweat. Lu Yingying complained. She was quite reluctant to stand on her feet. Master, we only need to stay for 1 day to accomplish our mission. I do not think any exploration is necessary. Fu Xiaotian pulled her up. Now that we are here, we should really take a look around. If we can find the problematic drought demon, it will be a great achievement as a couple. Our marriage will be recognized by many more on the continent. As you know, as soon as our relationship becomes public, many will start to talk behind our backs. Some would even think that we are the reason behind Meng Ke's death. But I am scared. After all, no one has been able to survive this place, Lu Yingying protested. Don't worry. I'm here. You do not have to be afraid of all those demons. I am here to protect you. Fu Tianxiu's sweet words were able to cheer her up. Fu Tianxiao was a sweet talker. Anything he said to a girl always sounded thoughtful. Also, he had prepared many things in advance. A bottle of honey water, some food, and even an umbrella. The umbrella was green in color, so when they walked under the green shade, it formed a picturesque scene with distinct color contrasts. Nevertheless, it only took 2 days to shatter their romance. They had yet to find the legendary demon, nor the entrance where they came through. Fu Xiaotian and Lu Yingying had done everything they could to break their way out, but the exit was still nowhere to be seen. The sun remained scorching hot, and 2 days of exposure and dehydration had shed their skin off. Fu Xiaotian was no longer the thoughtful man he used to be. In fact, he started to take strict control over their food and water. Lu Yingying was no longer granted access to the supply. From his observation, Di Hao finally realized that the desert had the unique ability to revert the celestial beings back to their very mundane ways. Even a celestial being who fed on the wind and drank the dew had to live on like a regular human being who depended on food and water. Otherwise, even a celestial being would die from hunger and thirst. Outside of the desert, the couple no longer needed food, so the amount of food that Fu Xiaotian had with him was very scarce. He only brought them as a romantic gesture. Consequently, when hunger and thirst struck them, they finally realized they needed it. 2 days were enough to change their appearance. Lu Yingying was no longer happy, and her pretty face was totally sunburned. Even her supple lips were chapped. Chapter 2967. The Couple's Challenge 3. Fu Xiaotian was no longer the romantic gentleman that he was before entering the desert. He reprimanded Lu Yingying for drinking too much water during their stay here and even began to stop supplying her with any. The cruel reality for survival shredded the veil of love that the two had for one another, revealing their true nature deep down. On the 3rd day, the two lovebirds began to calculate and ration how much water they could drink to the point where they fought with each other. Di Hao was hiding in the dark, watching them arguing from day to night, and then he asked the pink candle dragon next to him, "Is it true that everyone who comes here will argue?" The pink candle dragon nodded. Most of them. Some started to fight early on, and some took time to break down. This desert is a bit strange. How quickly it took for them to feel hungry and thirsty was not based on their skills or abilities, but the degree of loyalty they had for each other. The earlier they fought, the faster they got hungry. The later they fought, the later they got hungry. I had seen a very persistent couple that survived for a month. During that time, the man even cut the flesh on his arm for his lover to eat. But in the end, the woman killed him, just to drink his blood. Di Hao remained silent. Perhaps, fate wanted to teach him a lesson about love and give him a phobia toward relationships. What happened next? He asked. Then, the woman lived on the flesh and blood of the man for 2 more days. But after that she died from the heat. Before she died, she really regretted what she had done. She frequently shed tears and called the man's name. The flesh and blood of her lover supported her for only 2 days. Di Hao did not believe it. When she killed the man's flesh and blood immediately became rotten. She couldn't consume it anymore. Di Hao felt rather uncomfortable by the sharing he heard. In the beginning, he thought that the woman who made this desert had been getting more hot-tempered, which resulted in the temperature rising. Now, he was wondered if she was the demonic side of his mother. Perhaps, The person behind this desert used the resentment between the couples as a form of nutrients to grow this place. Also, it seemed that the only way to break out of here was to get rid of that demon. However, this demon had surely grown stronger after feeding on the couples for more than 10,000 years. It was probably even more powerful than the omen. If he were in his prime, he might have a chance of defeating her and turn the sky into ashes, but now, his small body no match to her. Although this was a demon from his mother's past life, she should not know him and would not show him any mercy. So what can he do? He was so worried. When he was thinking of a way to get out, the pink candle dragon beside him suddenly hooked his sleeves with its claws. She is here. She's here. Hao was surprised that she had returned. It seemed that the woman in white appeared out of thin air. He quickly asked the pink candle dragon, "Are we going to dive into the ground this time?" The pink candle dragon shook its head. "No, you can watch the show this time." Hao sat to watch what would happen next. The couple that was fighting suddenly stopped when the darkness suddenly surrounded them. Then, they saw the woman in white. Luiying called out, "The drought demon! The demon has emerged." Hao was speechless. Such an idiot. Although this woman was not a fairy, she was not a demon either, okay? If she were, they would already be dead. Fu Shaolin also breathed a sigh of relief. We finally scammed her out. Hao frowned when he heard that. Was this couple just pretending to fight? If they did, this would be interesting. The woman stared at Fu Shaolin. Do you really love her? Can you sacrifice anything for her? Chapter 2968. The Couple's Challenge 4. Fu Shaotian paused for a moment upon hearing the question. He looked at the woman and cleared his throat upon replying, "Yes." His voice was hoarse because of his thirst, so it did not sound very confident. Luiying was the most beautiful person in the world to him, but when she was compared to the strange woman in front of them, she was pale in comparison. Although this woman looked cold, she had a unique temperament. This temperament could drive men crazy when they saw her. The pale woman smiled and then sighed. "I think that you are a talented person, so I wanted to let you go. However, I didn't expect you to have someone in your heart. This has made my decision rather difficult." Luiying added, "Why are you being indecisive? Demon, don't try to confuse my master." She rushed toward the woman and attacked. Her martial arts was top-notch, but her strength was clearly weakened because of her hunger. Nevertheless, it was compelling when she attacked. Many white lights fired at the woman from all directions at the same time. The woman in white only waved her sleeves, and the white light from the sky turned into cloth. Fu Xiaoshen's facial expression changed. He originally wanted to attack her as well, but he put that idea in the back burner. This pale woman's power was not only strange but certainly very high. He and Luiying were no match for it. "Who are you? What can we do for you to let us go?" The woman's eyelashes trembled slightly as she sighed. "I don't want you to have a lover." Fu Shan looked down on the ground as he replied, This is hard." He secretly gestured to Luiying. After all, they had been partners for a long time, and they had a tacit understanding of each other. As soon as she saw the signal, she quietly moved closer to him. All she was doing now was waiting for Fu Shaolin to make another gesture, then both of them could join forces and attack the woman. The two of them had prepared for this day by cultivating a technique of combining their power. Once they applied it, they could double their skill and become almost invincible. Luiying believed that as long as they used this technique, they could kill this woman. Meanwhile, the woman in white did not seem to be aware of the impending danger. She looked up at the sky and sighed. "It's so cold. I can't see the sun." Luiying chuckled upon hearing it. What was wrong with this white woman? It seemed like she had never seen the sun before. At that moment, Fu Shaotian took the opportunity and launched an attack. "Poe!" A swift sound was heard as the sword in Fu Xiaoshen's palm was inserted into Luiying's chest. Luiying could not believe it, and her eyes widened in disbelief. "Master, you." Fu Shaoyan looked down at the ground, feeling guilty for what he had done. "Ying, you said that you would walk through fire for me, and you would give me anything. This is the time to pay for it with your life." The two were master and apprentice, so they naturally knew each other's weaknesses. Fu Xiaotian had stabbed her at the weakest point of her body, so Lu Yingying slowly fell to the ground. The one you love most is yourself. She fell onto the yellow sand, widened her eyes, and breathed her last breath. Then, Fu Xiaonan withdrew the sword from her chest and looked up at the woman in white. He gently said, "Now, my sweetheart is gone. We can take things forward. I like you, even if you are a demon. I like you." The pale woman did not look at him but still kept her focus on the sky above. "It's so cold. I'm so cold." Fu Xiaotian looked around in confusion and tried to step forward. He opened his arms widely as if wanting to hug the woman. "If you are cold, my arms are here for you." However, the woman did not respond. Fu Xiaotian was a bold man, so he stepped forward again. He was tempted to place his arms on her waist. Di Hao frowned, but the pink candle sighed at the scene. There will be another frozen man. The last time when someone wanted to hold her to give her warmth, the result was that he was turned into an ice sculpture. When the sun was up, he melted into water. When Fu Xiaoshan's arms were going to reach for the woman's waist, there was the sound of strong winds in the area, and suddenly, there was a green thorn barrier in front of the woman. Fu Xiaoshan did not manage to touch the beauty, but the sharp thorn poked into his arm. Chapter 2969. Inner demons. Fu Xiaotian snorted and retreated as if an electric current hit him. Cold sweat started to roll down from his forehead, and he was clearly in pain. "Who are you?" His tone changed. "It's me." A man floated in the air. The man had a beautiful appearance and was wearing a bamboo green robe. He had a foldable fan with a starry sky picture painted on it. Beside him was a strong and slender candle dragon, which made him look even more elegant and handsome. Despite the dark sky that was covered by clouds, the man seemed to be radiating with an aura around him. Fu Xiaotian was also a handsome man. However, when compared to the man in front of him, he was probably just a plain rock. Fu Xiaoshan's eyes were now fixed on the candle dragon. Although he did not know the man in the green robe, he heard about candle dragons, which were extremely rare. Those who could make a candle dragon their pet were surely extraordinary beings. With that in mind, he took a step further back and took a deep breath. "Who are you?" The man did not look at him as his eyes were locked on the woman in white. His eyes sparkled as he clenched his fists. "Shijio." He obviously did not expect to meet her here, so his voice was full of surprise. The woman looked at him and repeated his words like a robot. "Shijio?" It seemed that this was the first time that she had heard the name. The man stared at her closely and seemed to have thought of something. His facial expression changed gradually. "You are not her." Her expression and temperament were very different, and even her aura was different. The current Gu Shijio was a cunning and experienced woman. Her expression always revealed her wisdom, but she usually had a lazy temperament. Meanwhile, the woman in white looked innocent and pure. Nevertheless, there seemed to be something wrong with her. He suddenly stepped forward and blurted out, "Master?" This woman seemed to be the one in his nightmares. The two seemed so similar. The green-robed man's heart was racing, and his fists were clenched so tightly in his sleeves to the point where they were turning white. In his nightmare, his master was clearly dead. How could she suddenly appear here? Furthermore, her body still carried such a strong magical aura. What was going on here? The woman frowned at the man, and her indifferent gaze patrolled his face. It seemed that she was in deep thought. "Master?" This man was naturally Fan Qianshi. He looked at the woman in front of him, and his heart seemed to have a grievance but also unclear closeness. He made up his mind and stepped forward. "Master, don't you recognize me? I am Fan Qianshi, your apprentice." The woman blinked her eyes in quick succession. She had really big, black eyes, and her skin was extremely fair. Upon gazing into each other's eyes, it was as if there was no end. "My apprentice," she reached out to him with her little hand, "do you have wine?" Needless to say, Fan Qianshi was stunned by the question. He looked at her intricately as if trying to study her. The woman in front of him seemed to have lost her memory and could not remember anything, but her habits never changed. He put his hand into his storage space and took out a wine gourd and handed it over to her. The woman's sleeves were rolled up, and she accepted the wine. She took off the lid from the bottle and immediately drank the wine. However, after she took a sip, she frowned and spat it on the floor. When she looked up again, her eyes were murderous. "Bastard! How dare you lie to me?" She flicked her fingertip, and the wine gourd instantly shattered into ashes. At the same time, the alcohol was scattered all over the ground, leaving a pungent smell in the area. Chapter 2970. Inner Demons. 2. Outraged by the incident with the wine, the surrounding temperature suddenly dropped by more than 10 degrees. She launched an attack with her palm toward Fan Qianshi while trying to release her frustration. The palm of her hand was full of ice and snow and carried a deadly aura with it. Fan Qianshi quickly dodged the attack and activated a wizardry barrier for himself and the candle dragon. The ice and snow that were condensed by the Guzigius attack had crashed violently onto the barrier. The barrier set by Fan Qianshi originated from his spiritual power, so it was sturdy and resistant. No one was able to break it except for the master of the heavenly law, Di Fui. With such a level of protection, Fan Qianshi assumed that he would be safe from any attack. However, he did not expect that after barrier would crack after being struck repeatedly. It did not take long for the entire barrier to shatter into pieces. The ice pieces that came with each attack were like sharp needles that pierced into his skin. Fan Qianshi had chills running around his body even though he had such a high ability. His hands and feet turned cold at once while ice started forming on his eyelashes. Meanwhile, the candle dragon's skills were fire-related. Technically, it should not be afraid of the cold, but at this moment, its scales were shut due to the ice and snow, so it could no longer hover in the air. Consequently, it slammed and crashed on the ground. As its body had frozen into ice, the free fall almost broke it into two pieces. It curled its body into a circle and trembled. Cold. Fan Qianshi did not dare to lose focus. He endured the cold and issued a colorful light from his palms to cover the candle dragon. Finally, the ice and snow melted away. The candle dragon quickly clung around him, and its two big eyes looked at the woman in fear. In that brief moment, it studied its surroundings with big eyes and noticed that the vast yellow sand had become a glacier. At the same time, Fu Xiaotian had turned into an ice sculpture. He probably wanted to run away when it happened as he was standing in a ridiculous running pose. One of his feet was lifted while the other one was still on the ground. His eyes were wide open, but his body seemed lifeless. In principle, those that were at the level of a great deity would not die even though they were frozen into ice sculptures. At most, they would fall into hibernation. However, now Fu Xiaoyan was dead, and apparently he died in pain. His soul had clearly dissipated and turned into a grievance in this desert. Fan Qianshi took a deep breath and finally realized the identity of the woman. This woman was the god of demons. The god of demons was a legendary existence. The being's power was so extreme, unlike ordinary demons. She was a combination of a real demon and a real god, and in her optimal state, she could destroy the world. Fan Qianshi did not expect that his master would have a devil side to her and that she would be trapped here. His facial expression had certainly changed drastically, but he had yet to figure out how he really felt about everything. Perhaps he was too obsessed about his master in the past. By right, he should have forgotten the existence of the god of creation. However, since he woke up hibernation about 10,000 years ago, he often had nightmares about the past. In the beginning, there were some sporadic fragments of memories returning to him. But later, the scenes were quite vivid in his dreams. Every time he woke up, he felt like he went through everything all over again. Of course, the dreams he had were different from what Di Hao experienced. What Di Hao saw was from Guzigius' perspective, and what Fan Qianshi had dreamed of was what he had experienced from his own perspective. He saw himself crumble during his infatuation in the past. He was so helpless, desperate, and resentful. Chapter 2971. Inner Demons. 3. He saw her ruthlessness and how she fell in love with someone else. She had shattered his spirits in the past. The man hated her. He hated her so much that he even dreamt about her at night and could not even sleep well, all because he wanted to get his revenge. Seeing the dark side of his master right in front of him, he did not know what to do. He was the god of creation who had been practicing for tens of thousands of years, and his skill was undoubtedly powerful. Therefore, the ice that the god of demons fired at him would not actually kill him, though it certainly made him uncomfortable. Nonetheless, he simply could not believe that his master was standing in front of him right now. She had always seemed so pure, so it was hard to believe that any part of her existence could be demonic. To make matters worse, this creature appeared to be the god of demons. How did this demonic side come into existence? At first, Fan Qianshi had retreated from the demon. But now, he decided to step forward. He smiled slightly as he asked, "Master, what type of wine do you want to drink? I will get one for you." The woman in white bit her lip with confusion. "What kind of wine do I want to drink? What kind of wine do I want to drink?" She tapped her chest and shook her head. Soon, there was a frown on her face. "I feel very empty here. It is very uncomfortable. I am in pain. I want a drink, any drink is fine." Fan Qianshi was speechless. Was the demon side of his master driven by wine? He was her apprentice for a few decades back then. Certainly he knew her taste. He knew what kind of wine she liked, but because of the hatred in his heart, he never drank the ones she loved. There were some wines that he gave up drinking simply because of his master. Therefore, although he had brought wine with him, none of them were her favorites. Nevertheless, seeing his master in despair had certainly made him uncomfortable. It seemed she was genuinely suffering. He suddenly regretted not bringing her favorite wines. If he had known earlier, he would have brought it along with him. He had asked his candle dragon to trace Di Hao's soul for 20 days before he found this continent. The candle dragon, also known as Little Black, told him firmly that the pink candle dragon that cut him off was located here. When he finally found it, he had made some inquiries about the place before finally stepping into the desert. Apparently, he did not mind the danger. He thought the story was all made up by the pink candle dragon. After all, the candle dragon was a fire dragon. It was effortless for it to make a desert hotter and hotter. As for those masters who could not come back, he suspected that the candle dragon probably ate them. With this speculation, he walked into the desert with the black candle dragon but did not expect to see the fluttering woman in white there. The first thing he saw was a man trying to take advantage of Gu Shijiao. He was furious and subconsciously wanted to punish Fu Shaun. But now that everything was said and done, he looked up at the woman in white who looked confused and said softly, "Master, do you want to drink the green plum wine? Let me get some for you. Can you wait for me?" The woman in white did not respond to him. She only stared at the sky, hugged her arms and murmured, "It's so cold. Where did the sun go? It is freezing." Her eyelashes also seemed to be frosted, and her thin body seemed to be swaying in the wind. "I am so cold." She looked very vulnerable at the moment, which gave Fan Qianshi an involuntary impulse in his head while his blood circulation had rapidly increased. He wanted to hold her in his arms to warm her up so that her pale face could turn pink again. He stepped forward and opened his arms slightly. "Master, Pong!" An enormous, dark, and cold body landed into his arms. The black candle dragon's voice sounded in his head, "I am so cold. Give me some warmth." Fan Qianshi was speechless. He kicked the dragon. "Get off." Chapter 2972, Inner Demons 4. Little Black had rolled all over on the ground, and then jumped like its tail had been stepped on. "Cold, cold, cold." It yelled in the midst of all that movement. While jumping around, it suddenly landed in front of Fan Qianshi. Its large body blocked Fan Qianshi's vision, so he was unable to see the woman in white for a moment. Fan Qianshi was astonished as he felt like he was just awakened from his dreams. He often used ecstasy to confuse others, but he did not expect to fall into someone else's trap. She almost fooled him. The candle dragon was massive in size, and it blocked his sight completely. At that moment, the man regained his consciousness and realized that he had fallen into a trance. He pushed the candle dragon away as he said, "Just get off me." Since Fan Qianshi was definitely very powerful, Little Black did not dare to keep blocking him. It took the opportunity to run away but also claimed credit where it was due. You do know that you were in a trance, right? If it were not for me, you would have turned into an ice sculpture. Fan Qianshi was too tired to entertain it right now. His heart was burning like a fire. It must be one of her inner demons. But how did it get formed? The woman was like a blank paper in the past. Even though he treated her so well, she still abandoned him and did not see him for the last time before she was immortalized. In fact, she kept him occupied studying the candle dragon's egg. It was ridiculous that he had to spend so much time just to hatch an egg, but he wanted to hatch it early in order to cheer her up. Nevertheless, he did not expect her just to use it to distract him. Her mind was on Di Fui, and all the arrangements before she was dead were for Di Fui. She even transferred all her skills to him. Everything was so well prepared. Whatever it was, what did she have to do to become a demon? He looked at the woman in white again, only to find that she had left and was headed toward the snow. The blood was rushing to his heart once again. But just when he was about to chase after her, she suddenly disappeared. As soon as that happened, the clouds in the sky dissipated, and the sun came out again. The weather soon became hot, while the ice and snow melted rapidly. In just a few seconds, it was like a fire was burning in the desert. He could even feel the dryness in his throat with one breath. Hot, hot, hot. It's too hot. Something is wrong with this desert. It's cold and hot. The candle dragon was finally able to open the scales. Its mouth was ajar, and it looked shocked. Obviously, it was the first time it saw a place where the weather changed so drastically. However, Fan Qianshi was obviously occupied in his thoughts and did not care about it. He turned back and left. Hey, where are you going? The candle dragon wondered. I am going out to buy wine. Didn't you come here to find Di Hao's soul? I can sense that the pink candle dragon is here. Fan Qianshi paused for a moment, but then he simply continued walking forward. I will get to him after I buy some wine. Little Black was speechless. He has been rushing to find this desert, but now that they had found it, the man still had time to go and buy wine. Did his master lose his mind? In any case, it had to follow its owner, so it just left as well. After an hour, Fan Qianshi looked at the yellow sand around him miserably. He finally understood one thing. He was trapped in this desert. He could not go out. He was an expert in wizardry barriers but could not find a way out. Even the candle dragon could also break the barrier. This was rather odd as the candle dragon could typically break any barrier by its loud screeches. But this time, its throat was almost hoarse. This desert was still the desert, there was no border, and they had not found any way to go out. Forget the wine, they could not even get water. Chapter 2973, Inner Demons, 5. This was the first time Little Black encountered such a situation, hence, it was stunned too. It looked at the hot sun in the sky and looked at its owner again in search of a solution. Are we going to stay here forever? Fan Qianshi's facial expression turned serious. He seemed to think of something. Where is that pink candle dragon? Didn't you say that it is in this desert? Little Black paused for a moment to think about its master's question. All of a sudden, its eyes showed that it was alert to something. Master, it is innocent. Are you seeking revenge? The vein on Fan Qianshi's forehead almost popped. He kicked Little Black as he said, I have already answered this before. As long as it obediently listens to me, I will not hurt it. If you say anything more, I will bake you alive. At the end of the day, there was nothing much that Little Black could do to stop him. It merely muttered, in any case, you can't be unfavorable to it. Otherwise, where should I hide my face? Fan Qianshi was too lazy to argue with Little Black. Ever since this fella encountered the pink candle dragon, its temperament seemed to have changed. All of a sudden, it was a gentleman. It kept going on about how a good candle dragon would not inflict harm to a lady or how a female candle dragon had priority when it came to certain things. It made Fan Qianshi so annoyed to the point where he almost wanted to cook its pet. Fan Qianshi had been ruthless to many people but not to Little Black. Hence, This fella had been badly spoilt and always pushed him to his limit when it came to negotiations. Quickly find it. It's the local snake here, so maybe it knows the way out. It is a dragon, not a snake. I know. It is just a metaphor. Don't you get it? Fan Qianshi was so furious that he almost burst into flames. Little Black snorted, "What a bad metaphor, it is obviously a dragon, but you described it as a snake." It muttered and finally began to trace the aura of the pink candle dragon. Among the candle dragons, each of them had a natural way of sensing one another. Little Black turned around as it smelled traces of the pink candle dragon. It's strange, it seems to be under the ground. Could it because that it is afraid of the heat, so it had built itself a cave? Fan Qianshi squinted his eyes at Little Black. It really did not matter to him what the pink candle dragon's preferences were as long as they could find it. Since this desert was a place to trap people, Di Hao's soul should be trapped as well. Perhaps he was now with the pink candle dragon. He got on the back of the black candle dragon and instructed, "Bring me to it." Di Hao and the pink candle dragon went underground as soon as Fan Qianshi appeared. After all, Little Pink caught Di Hao from the black candle dragon claws, so when it saw Little Black, it subconsciously felt guilty and fled. It did not just run away from Little Black but also took its prized possession that it stole from it. Swiftly, Di Hao followed Little Pink without asking too many questions. Since Little Pink often hid here, it had made a nest. Although this nest was simple, it was tidy and did not too feel crowded inside. The only drawback was that there was no air inside. People would get stifled if they stayed here for a long time. After Little Pink sneaked in here, it carefully listened to the movements above the ground with its ears. Di Hao stood there and did not interrupt it at first. But after a while, he asked, "Can you hear the movements above?" Little Pink shook its head. "I can't hear anything. They are 1,000 feet away from us." "Then what are you doing?" "I am sensing the black candle dragon's presence. Among us candle dragons, we have a special ability to sense each other. A distance of 1,000 feet will only feel like a few feet for us." Little Pink proudly shared its knowledge. Di Hao's facial expression changed slightly. He heaved a sigh and said, "Let's go up." "Ah, for what?" "They were the ones who caught you last time. Once we go up, they will find you." "I will be found even if we don't go up, so why don't I go up and face it?" "Little Di Hao, you are a fascinating person." Chapter 2974. Tortured Di Hao looked up and saw Fan Qianshi riding a black candle to come to see him. The scales of the pink candle dragon were standing up, and it positioned its head to pick up Di Hao. It roared and rushed up immediately. "It despised me! It despised me!" Little Black almost curled itself up in disappointment. Fan Qianshi pulled the lantern on top of its head and said, "You saw it wrong. Anyway, let's go up." In fact, Fan Qianshi felt relieved when he saw Di Hao. This little guy was still around. As long as he caught him, he would have leverage against Di Fui and Gu Shijio. Fan Qianshi thought that Di Hao and the chubby pink dragon would run the desert and make him chase after them like a cat chases a mouse. Unexpectedly, when he emerged to the surface, Di Hao and the pink candle dragon were standing there waiting for him. Di Hao still rode on the back of the pink candle dragon, and the pink candle dragon was standing on a dune. The raging sun had stretched their shadows rather widely and made them look quite extraordinary. Di Hao still looked more or less the same, except that his face was thinner, and he looked a bit tired. Fan Qianshi then shifted his attention to the pink candle dragon, and he smirked. Apparently, this was the earth-shattering beauty that Little Black had sung praises about. It was almost willing to sacrifice its owner's wishes just to please the pink candle dragon. However, the creature was fat and short, like a winter melon. Although its skin had a unique radiance and appeared pinkish and cute, it was rather mysterious as opposed to beautiful. What a horrible sense of beauty Little Black possessed. Perhaps, Little Black had not seen other candle dragons for so many years, so he treated a pig as a peacock. He made a mental note that after they got out from here, he would take Little Black back to the Candle Dragon clan to meet more creatures of its race and correct its sense of beauty. After Little Black was out of the ground, it lowered its head and did not dare to look directly into the eyes of Little Pink, who he thought wanted to kill it. It felt guilty to the point where it not only lowered down its head, but even its lantern was hanging down. Its tail was wagging behind it so vigorously that it almost caused a sandstorm. Fan Qianxia had raised it for so many years, so naturally he understood what this action represented. It was incredibly guilty. This fella felt extremely guilty. Nevertheless, Fan Qianxia was very tired of its nonsense. He was angry that Little Black was so useless. He sent him a directed audio to scold him. Is this short winter melon even worth your time? What are you feeling guilty for? Just then, the lantern on the top Little Black's head immediately straightened again. It was, however, angry. You can't describe it this way. It's the most beautiful I have ever seen. It swayed its body and almost smashed Fan Qianxia away. Clearly, Fan Qianxia was speechless. Perhaps, one would always find its lover to be the most beautiful in its eyes. Besides, he was too lazy to correct it now. He would think about it later. Right now, his eyes were fixed on Dihao. He smiled and said, "Do you want to come over and receive your punishment, or do I need to go and catch you personally?" Dihao returned the smile. "In fact, it is useless to catch me. Once you enter here, you should prepare to stay with us for the rest of your life." Dihao was actually somewhat gratified. This place could only be entered. There was no exit. If Fan Qianxia were trapped here for a lifetime, then he would not be able to harm others in the future, and his parents' fate could be changed. It would be a worthy sacrifice. What's more, Dihao would not be trapped here for a lifetime. Perhaps when his mother was pregnant, his soul would automatically reincarnate into his mother's fetus. On the other hand, Fan Qianxia would remain trapped here and enjoy the extreme cold as well as the scorching sun. Sponsored content remove ads? Fan Qianxia was extremely intelligent, so naturally he understood Dihao's message. He squinted his eyes ever so slightly and sneered. "So, you're saying that you can't find a way out either?" Dihao flicked his index finger up. "Bingo!" Fan Qianxia did not believe him, so he turned his attention to the pink candle dragon and leisurely laughed. "If I guess correctly, the key to solving the wizardry barrier surrounding this desert is with this fat winter melon. Once it is killed, the wizardry barrier will naturally be broken." To make sure that Little Black was not furious, Fan Qianxia sent a directed audio to Little Black while uttering this sentence. "I am only saying this to scare them. Don't you dare to make a fuss." Sponsored content remove ads? Hence, Little Black resisted and did not get angry. It only lowered its head to hide its existence. The pink candle dragon had lived here for as long as it could remember. Although it had seen many people, it had never seen one of its own kind before it met Little Black. It thought that all the candle dragons looked the same, but apparently it was mistaken. Seeing Little Black, who was thin and long, gave it the impression that its male counterpart was ugly. It also somewhat despised it. However, since Fan Qianxia referred to it as a fat melon, it was suddenly stunned. It had never seen a winter melon, so it naturally did not know what a fat melon was, but based on the tone that he used, she knew that it was not something good. Naturally, it refuted, "You are fat melon. Also, you can't kill me. I have lived here for more than 100,000 years. It has been so lonely that I have tried to commit suicide many times, but couldn't succeed. What makes you think you can do so?" Sponsored content remove ads? I have been exposed to the scorching sun and endured the chilly coldness. I even scratched my stomach with my claws and tried to cut off my own head. The pink candle dragon's tone started to get higher. "In fact, I have had enough of this broken place. But I can't leave. I can't die. Others can die from the heat or can freeze to death, but I can't. I would only have a layer of dry skin, but I am still alive and healthy. I can't even sever my own head. When I had tried to do so, I passed out midway. Nevertheless, when I woke up, my head appeared to have never been cut at all." Dihao did not expect the pink candle dragon to be so self-destructive. He was certainly surprised to hear this side of the story. Little Black looked at it in disbelief too. It even shed a tear when it looked at the pink candle dragon. "Why did you torture yourself? Why?" The pink candle dragon's big eyes were widened. Perhaps you should try to stay in this broken place for more than 100,000 years. You have no food and water. And to make matters worse, no one can see you. Everyone's life and death have nothing to do with you, but you still have to live every day, being baked by the raging sun every day. Sponsored content remove ads? All the people, including Little Black, were silent. This kind of life was terrifying. It was better to be dead than to live. The pink candle dragon got even more emotional as it stepped forward toward Fan Qianshi. Don't you want to kill me? Come on. Come. You will be doing me a favor. Fan Qianshi was speechless. He slammed his sleeves, and the wind blew the pink candle dragon away. Bastard! Do you think I won't kill you? He stepped forward to launch an attack, but before he had time to do anything, Little Black rushed in front of the pink candle dragon and opened its two front paws to shield it. What do you think you are doing? If you want to kill it, you have to kill me first. This drove Fan Qianshi even more furious. His handsome face turned black for a moment. This bastard had repeatedly challenged his authority in front of other people. Did it really think it would not be punished? If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Note, please download the sponsor's game to support us. Chapter 2976, Tortured, 3. He did not speak but cast a spell from under his sleeve. An intricate spell condensed quickly at his fingertips, and he promptly fired an attack at Little Black's head. Little Black obviously did not expect him to shoot at it. All of a sudden, it felt that there were countless steel needles inserted in its brain. The pain was unbearable. Then, the steel needles somehow connected to its mind to control its body. Soon, Fan Qianshi instructed it, "Lie down." Little Black's mind was awake, but it had clearly lost control of its body and immediately fell on the sand. The sand was hot, and it certainly burnt its belly. It could feel the pain, but it could not stand up no matter how hard it tried. Since Little Black had been with him for so many years, it was familiar with this spell and understood the consequences. The owner actually used the puppet technique on it. It was now being manipulated like a puppet. The only thing that it could control was its eyes as its entire body lay flat on the scorching ground. The look on its face clearly showed its disappointment. It had not expected its owner to treat it this way. Fan Qianshi deliberately avoided looking into its eyes. He stared coldly at the pink candle dragon and said, "I don't really believe that I can't kill you. Since this pink candle was here and has been trapped for 100,000 years, it seemed to be related to this desert. It was definitely possible that it was the key to unlocking the wizardry barrier. The man clearly did not want to be stuck here forever. Therefore, he had to find a way out. Wanting to exert dominance, he unleashed the power of his aura as the god of creation. It was overbearing to the point where Little Pink could not stand up straight and slammed onto the ground. Then, it watched firsthand as Fan Qianshi's palm somehow transformed into a long red sword. When he stepped closer to it, its eyes finally showed a sense of fear, and its body shrank. Read more chapters at List Novel. Apparently, it was afraid of death. Fan Qianshi had been staring at its eyes the entire time, waiting to call its bluff. When he saw the chubby pink dragon trembling in fear, he laughed. "It seems you have been lying." He waved the long sword in his hand swiftly like a fan, and many sword duplicate shadows of the sword appeared around him and fired towards the pink candle dragon like thunderbolts. This was a trick that could only be issued by the god of creation, so it was undoubtedly powerful. It could kill gods and demons, and even Di Fui might not be able to withstand it in his current state. Hence, this mutated pink candle dragon did not stand a chance. Di Hao's facial expression changed slightly. Although he was not in his best shape, he was the master of the heavenly law after all. His knowledge was incredibly profound, and he knew the nature of Fan Qianshi's attack. He was definitely looking to kill the candle dragon. Although the boy also wanted to leave the desert, he intuitively thought that it was not so simple to crack the wizardry barrier of this desert. It would probably bring more disaster to him if he killed the pink candle dragon. Furthermore, the boy had formed a relationship with the pink candle dragon, and they have been together for some time, so naturally, he did not want to see it being killed. Speedily, he made up his mind about what he would do and put his fingertips on his eyebrows. Suddenly, his body released multiple colors of lights. The colorful light formed into a round shield that covered the pink candle dragon at once, and the red shadow swords issued by Fan Qianshi crashed into the shield right when it protected Little Pink. The collision was met with an earth-shattering sound, and it appeared that the two moves were equally matched. Di Hao's protective barrier was shattered while Fan Qianshi's swords had fallen to the ground. Di Hao's face turned pale at once, and his little body felt like it was being blown away by a mad wind. He flew at least 7 to 8 feet away following the collision. He could not stand up straight and spurted out a mouthful of blood. He could only bring himself to sit up straight on the ground, but his head felt a little dizzy. There also seemed to be an irregularity in his heart. Fan Qianshi was more powerful than he thought. Di Hao could not believe that his special move as the master of the heavenly law had been shattered so easily. Meanwhile, Fan Qianshi was equally puzzled that Di Hao was able to match his attack. Although he did not get blown away, he felt an uneasiness in his chest. It was evident that Di Hao's power was high enough to challenge him. Chapter 2977. Tortured. 4. After all, Fan Qianshi had dealt with the master of the heavenly law, Di Fui, multiple times. He certainly knew some of the skills that the master of the heavenly law possessed. The special move that was used by Di Hao earlier was kind of similar to a type of skill used by Di Fui during one of their encounters after he had discovered his true identity. In fact, Fan Qianshi believed that the current Di Fui would not be able to use such a move. Nevertheless, if little Di Hao was Di Fui's adopted son, how was he able to use this kind of skill? With a wave of his hand, the blood-red sword reformed in his palm. However, this time, he did aim it at the pink candle dragon. His focus was now on Di Hao. "Who are you? How do you know how to use the Yuanyang shield?" The tone of his voice was rather murderous at that point in time. Di Hao barely swallowed blood from his mouth as he smiled. "Why don't you make a guess?" Fan Qianshi sneered. "Do you think you can keep secrets from me? I have my ways to force you to reveal the truth." Then he pinched a spell on his fingertips again, and the sand around Di Hao started to move. Within seconds, countless thorns appeared to have drilled out of the ground. The sharp needle-like thorns seemed to have a cold green light on top of it and were intended to strike Di Hao. The purpose of the thorns was to tangle around Di Hao's soul. Once his soul was trapped by it, all the spikes would pierce into the soul and cause an unparalleled amount of pain. It would feel like something was tearing him apart from the inside. No matter how strong one's soul was, it could not resist such a spell, and the victim would usually answer truthfully to any question that it was asked, as the pain would be terribly unbearable. Fan Qianshi himself established this cruel punishment. He had been using it on many souls over the past few years. It was always useful and never failed him. Therefore, he did not see any reason why Di Hao would not succumb to it as well. Before the thorns had captured Di Hao, a pungent and suffocating smell had already spread around the area. Just from the smell, Di Hao naturally knew the severity of the threat. However, his body was too weak to respond to it now. It was even difficult for him to stand up on his own, let alone avoid it. Even though he watched the thorns approach like a fierce snake, he did not do anything to repel them. He merely closed his eyes and prepared for a hard time. "Hui!" Out of the blue, the pink candle dragon emerged and lifted Di Hao from the ground by its horn. Nevertheless, in that instant, the thorns had latched itself onto the body of the pink candle dragon like a viper. The pink candle dragon shrieked in sorrow as the thorns were obviously painful. It subconsciously wanted to fly away, but the thorns had entangled themselves onto him very tightly. The thorns seemed to spread rapidly all over its body, but it seemed that they were still targeting Di Hao. The pink candle dragon had rows of needles attached to its body now, and it was clearly in intense pain. "Let me down." Di Hao struggled on its horn. He could not escape anyway, so he did not want to let the pink candle dragon suffer unnecessarily. "No!" The pink candle dragon was still trying to break free from the thorns. This young boy was the only companion it had after so many years. It did not want him to suffer either. I didn't expect this fat melon to be so loyal. Fan Qianshi ridiculed Little Pink again and laughed. In this case, both of you can suffer together. His fingers continuously issued spells that made the thorns climb faster and faster onto the pink candle dragon. At this point, a sharp thorn had already made its way to Di Hao's ankle. In an instant, Di Hao could feel the intense pain on his body as if a spike had pierced through the blood vein in his ankle and somehow grew inside. His face went ashen very quickly, and cold sweat ran down from the forehead. Strangely, he did not scream. Instead, he laughed. Fan Qianshi, no wonder you can't truly rule this world. It turns out that you have become a demon. Chapter 2978. Savior Fan Qianshi choked before he could reply. What nonsense are you talking about? Little kid, I want to see how long you can survive. When he was about to accelerate the speed of the climbing thorns, a colorful light suddenly flashed from the side and hit the growing thorns. Those thorns trembled and issued the shrieking sound. Quickly, they seemed to shrink and willow away. Fan Qianshi's facial expression changed abruptly. His eyes glanced in the direction of the source of the blast as he released the spell that he had prepared on his fingertips. Gu Shijiu, you have finally come. Di Hao was surprised and also looked in the same direction. A woman in green was levitating in the sky. Her long hair was like a waterfall, and her eyes were like the brightest stars. Just watching her beauty would amaze the people around her. It was Gu Shijiu. Fan Qianshi's eyes brightened as he saw his master. He looked furious yet happy at the same time. The man could not help but chuckle. Gu Shijiu, your presence is very timely. Gu Shijiu looked at him and coldly replied, I have always been on time. Fan Qianshi, I didn't expect to meet you here. Fan Qianshi smiled casually and said, You didn't expect it? Actually, I always wanted to find you. I am glad that you have come as I always seem to miss you. Gu Shijiu frowned and stepped back. What do you want from me? Fan Qianshi, why have you been after me? Now you have even involved my son. Let him go. Whatever your problem is, please deal directly with me. Son? Is he really your son? Your biological son? You don't have to know whether or not he is my biological son. Whatever the case, I treat him as though he is mine. Oh, I didn't expect you to be so desperate for a son. You treat him as your biological son, but he may not treat you as his biological mother. His identity is very suspicious. Don't you think so? Gu Shijiu frowned. What is so suspicious? Fan Qianshi took a look at Di Hao before continuing. Thorns had entirely engulfed him and the pink candle dragon at this point, and their bodies trembled from time to time. Obviously, the two were suffering. Since the two of them could not run away anymore, Fan Qianshi did not bother to strengthen the spell. Then he returned his attention to Gu Shijiu and then stepped forward. Shijiu, Di Hao has learned a forbidden skill. It is not something he should be able to learn, even you and Di Fui can't learn it. Don't you think this is very strange? Gu Shijiu raised her eyebrows high. I don't get your point. What kind of banned skill has he learned? The skill that only can be learned by the master of the heavenly law. Fan Qianshi stared closely at her while he explained, seeing if she would be surprised by his information. He suspected that Di Fui had now restored his identity and memory as the master of the heavenly law, so he might have taught his son some of the techniques. The current Di Fui would not hide anything from Gu Shijiu. Therefore, if he had done so, Gu Shijiu would definitely know. Unfortunately, there was no visible change in Gu Shijiu's facial expression. Is there such a thing? How did you see it? Fan Qianshi looked at her again and could not tell if she was being truthful, so he took another step forward. Do you really want to know? There was a dark wave in his eyes at that point. It was mysterious and seemed to draw one's attention to it. Gu Shijiu's eyes inadvertently confronted him, and she could no longer move her eyes away. She murmured, I want to know. Fan Qianshi suddenly straightened his body, and his two sleeves seemed to launch toward Gu Shijiu and wrap her entire body. She struggled, but it seemed that she could not escape. Good girl. Come to me, I won't hurt you. Chapter 2979. Savior. 2. Good girl. Come to me, I won't hurt you. Fan Qianshi spoke calmly and gently. His voice could make a heart race and unknowingly fall for him. As he spoke, he slowly reeled in his sleeves inch by inch. Gu Zijia's current skills were high, though she was still no match for Fan Qianshi. It should not be taken lightly. Fortunately, as the reincarnation of the former god of creation, she has a strange power in her body that would come to her aid when needed. This power would not reveal itself during ordinary times, but once she encountered a great danger, a sudden force would awaken in her body as a way to protect with an unknown force. Fan Qianshi could easily kill her in one move if he wanted to end her life. However, it was apparent that he did not want to do so just yet. He seemed only to be interested in capturing her. Therefore, he had to play some low-risk tricks to catch her. Gu Shijio, who was trapped by his magical sleeves, was unwilling to succumb to him, but she could not control her hands and feet at the moment and helplessly moved closer to her predator, one step at a time. Fan Qianshi's eyes were brightened as he watched Gu Shijio slowly approaching him. In fact, this man had his arms wide open, as if waiting to hug her. He had always wanted to hug Gu Shijio, even in the past. Now, it seemed that he was finally going to get the chance. Gu Shijio continued to struggle to break free, but her efforts were in vain. Eventually, she stumbled and fell forward into his arms. A faint fragrance came to Fan Qianshi's nostrils at once. It was a familiar fragrance that he had longed for in the past. Just a whiff of it was able to send his blood boiling as he intuitively embraced her. But all of a sudden, his facial expression changed. Quickly, he grabbed the arms of the person he had captured and pushed. The person in his embrace was propelled away and eventually slumped onto the ground and groaned. Fan Qianshi took a step back and suddenly clenched his fists. Swiftly, he slapped the person on the ground. A white light suddenly enveloped the lady on the ground and caused a distraction. But when the white light disappeared, it became clear to Fan Qianshi that the person was not Gu Shijio. It was just a puppet. The puppet only looked just 30% like Gu Shijio, but with the help of a spell earlier, it looked exactly the same. This intricate technique could easily fool the average person, but should not have been able to do the same to Fan Qianshi. It seemed that his brain would always go offline every time he encountered Gu Shijio. Moreover, the puppet that Gu Shijio created had a very similar temperament and character to herself, and it appeared just at the right time. A thought suddenly occurred to Fan Qianshi, and he waved his sleeve toward the large thorny ball that was still trembling in fear at the corner. In an instant, the thorns on the ball receded like a tide, revealing a large doll on the inside. This doll appeared to be sewn in a hurry and even had no eyebrows. It would tremble and growl continuously. Even though Fan Qianshi had removed the thorns from its body, it still trembled and looked very realistic. Read more chapters at List Novel. It became clear to him that Di Hao and the pink candle dragon were no longer there as well. Obviously, they were rescued by someone. It seemed that Fan Qianshi was cheated. His face turned blue out of shock. He could not believe that his prey were rescued from right under his nose. The person behind all this was definitely getting on his nerves. Fan Qianshi stood frozen momentarily, before suddenly laughing hysterically at his misfortune. The only person who could steal people silently under his eyelids with such intelligent strategy and planning was Gu Shijio. She was the only one who could turn invisible and was able to teleport at the same time. She was here. She did it. And since no one in this desert can escape, where could she hide with Di Hao? Furthermore, she took the stupid pink candle dragon with her. He would find them. He would find the real Gu Shijio. And when he did, he would not let them slip away so easily. He raised his hand and gently patted the two puppets as he continued to laugh. Chapter 2980, Savior. 3. When it came to manipulating these puppets, he was the true architect. In fact, Fan Qianshi was a master in creating puppets. Little Shijio, when we meet again, do you think you can still fool me with this puppet technique? He thought to himself. Then, he turned his gaze to Little Black, who stood motionless like a piece of wood. Fan Qianshi found him to be too annoying at times, and he did not want it to ruin his plans, so he just kept his candle dragon frozen like a statue. However, he needed Little Black's help to find the pink candle dragon, and unfortunately, it could not do anything in its current state. Swiftly, Fan Qianshi flicked his sleeves and unlocked the spells that he had cast on it to keep it still. Little Black shook its body vigorously at first but then slowed down shortly after. It fixed its big glossy eyes at the man who put it in such misery. Fan Qianshi took a light breath and waited for it to start ranting. After all, this was the first time he had treated it this way. It was evident that the creature would be very angry with him once it regained control over its body. Secretly, Fan Qianshi tried to think of a way to get Little Black back on his side without too much of a fuss. However, he never expected that the candle dragon's first reaction was to subconsciously take a few steps back and stare at him with eyes full of fear. He was speechless. In fact, all of his subordinates, including Wu Wian, treated him with the utmost respect and always feared him. It was only this black candle dragon that was fearless and spoke candidly with him. It never seemed to respect its master the same way his subordinates did. Fan Qianshi often had a headache with how unruly this creature could be, but when he saw it showing exactly the same expression as the other people around him, he subconsciously felt a pain in his heart. He cleared his throat gently and spoke in a soft tone, "Little Black, come here. I want to tell you something." Little Black lowered its eyes and looked at the ground. It fell to its knees as it replied, "My lord, what do you want to tell me?" Fan Qianshi choked at what he just witnessed. "Little Black, I have to do this to get rid of Di Fui. Otherwise, once he returns, I will be doomed. I have to take advantage of the situation now. Gu Shijiao is the only one who can kill him, so I have to let her do this for me at any cost, and now that I have learned how much Gu Shijiao cares about Di Hao, I will use that to manipulate her into helping me. The pink candle dragon is definitely mutated. It cannot even be compared with an ordinary candle dragon. The reason why you think it is beautiful is that you haven't seen other candle dragons before. You can rest assured that when this is all over, I will take you to the land of candle dragons and find you a wife. I will catch you the one that you desire. So, please work with me now, unless you want me to die in Di Fui's hands in the future." Fan Qianshi had threatened and tempted his pet candle dragon in one go. His clear reasoning and emotional message were well planned to influence Little Black. Subconsciously, he also did not want it to be so obedient. In order not to cross any lines, Little Black kept both its head and tail down and spoke respectfully, "My lord does not need to explain anything to Little Black. Please give me your orders." Once again, Fan Qianshi was left dumbfounded. He almost suspected that the creature's soul had been replaced. It was either that or the spell that he had removed was probably done incorrectly and had somehow changed the temperament of the black candle dragon. Quietly, he decided to test these hypotheses to prove that neither was true. He sighed in relief at the result. Perhaps, Little Black had been treated too nicely all the while and never knew when to back down. Whatever it was, now was not the time to speculate on Little Black's intentions. Swiftly, Fan Qianshi gave it instructions to find the pink candle dragon. Without saying anything, Little Black began to search for its master's target. After a while, it simply raised its claw and pointed in a direction. Chapter 2981, Savior, 4. A pale yellow tent offered shelter from the blazing sun. The color of this tent was the same as the color of the sand and was built beside a stretch of dunes. From a distance, it had certainly camouflaged into its surroundings. In the tent, Di Hao looked at his busy mother and still could not believe that she was here. "Come on, close your mouth. Don't stare at me as if you have never been exposed to the world before." Gu Shijiao knocked on her son's head with her fingers as she pulled out the last thorn on his body and wiped the sweat on his forehead from the painful experience. Obviously, Gu Shijiao was very good at treating wounds. After pulling out the thorns and applying the appropriate medicine, the pain had greatly subsided. The pink candle dragon had countless thorns on its body and looked like a hedgehog. Even though Gu Shijiao had saved them and was treating Di Hao, Little Pink dared not go near her and merely shrank itself into a corner and watched her vigilantly. In fact, it retreated further into the corner when Gu Shijiao fixed her gaze on it. Mother, please treat him too. He is in such a condition because he tried to save me, Di Hao pleaded. Relax, I will definitely treat it. Gu Shijio patted her son on the shoulder as she comforted him. How have a good rest. I'll talk to you later after treating it. Good. Although Di Hao had so much to ask, he also knew that there was a tough battle to be fought later. If he could recover a little, he would be in less danger. Meanwhile, the pink candle dragon's round eyes observed Gu Shijio. Once it felt that Gu Shijio was getting too close, it quickly retreated a few steps. Little Pink, don't be afraid. This is my mother, not the demon who always drastically manipulates the temperature in the desert. She won't hurt you, she will help you. Di Hao understood the pink candle dragon's concern and wanted to comfort it. But they look so alike. They look like the same person. Although they look similar, they are not the same person. Well, it seems you are right. She has no demonic energy, and her kung fu is not as good as that woman. Nevertheless, their resemblance is uncanny. Little Pink's eyes could not help but size Gu Shijio up. Naturally, Di Hao and the pink candle dragon had conversed in its native language. Therefore, the pink candle dragon thought that the woman in front of it would not understand, which explains why it was rather blunt about its description of Gu Shijio. Gu Shijio touched its head and tapped the antenna on top of its head. In an instant, the pink candle dragon suddenly stiffened its body and looked up at her. Gu Shijio touched its eyelids with her fingers and said, "It still has its double eyelids, that's pretty." Her fingers were soft and gentle, so the pink candle dragon seemed to have an odd feeling in its heart. Even though this person seemed like a stranger, there was something faintly familiar about the way she interacted with the pink candle dragon. There was also a sense of inexplicable intimacy. The pink candle dragon was originally fearful of the woman in white, and those same feelings were transferred to Gu Shijio due to their similar appearance. It wanted to be closer to her now. Even before it figured out what was going on with itself, it had moved its small lantern above its head and rubbed it in her palm. After that, it was idled for a while, and intuitively remembered that this action seemed to be done often. Gu Zijia's heart also seemed to warm up from their brief interaction. Naturally, she had a lot of questions. She carefully plucked the thorns on the pink candle dragon's body while asking it, "Does someone here look the same as me? How long exactly have you been here?" She asked it a series of questions, and the pink candle dragon's eyes gradually grew rounder than a pair of eggs. Do you understand the language used by candle dragons? Chapter 2982. Another one bites the dust. Yes, I know a bit about it. You can answer my questions directly. There is no need for Hao Air to do any, Gu Shijio said firmly. The pink candle dragon stared at her in disbelief. Strange indeed. I used to be invisible to the world, and no one could understand me. But suddenly, everyone is able to see and hear me clearly, it murmured. As the pink candle dragon was speaking, Gu Shijio had been plucking away the thorns on its body. The creature was definitely grateful. Delightfully, it rubbed its lantern against her palm before initiating a question and answer session. It told her anything that she wanted to know and almost everything that it ever knew. Perhaps, it was even more than what it had previously shared with Di Hao. Troubled, Gu Shijio did not expect this place to only have a way in and not a way out. Nevertheless, she had to try to find a way. In fact, she refused to believe that there would be any wizardry barrier that she was unable to break. With that thought in mind, she clenched her fists as if ready to take on the challenge. Also, she had not figured out how she was related to the god of demons, who happened to look exactly like her. She suspected that the oddity of the wizardry barrier must be associated with the mysterious woman. It did not take long for Gu Shijio to remove all the thorns from the pink candle dragon's body. Finally, a layer of cream was applied to soothe the wounds, and the pain subsided. But even with the pain gone, the candle dragon seemed to have its guard up all the time. It would pay more attention to its surroundings than before. What is the matter? Gu Shijio rubbed its forehead. It does not seem right. It has been a while since the black candle dragon had found us. If I am not mistaken, it is still able to trace my scent and find us. The black candle dragon had certainly made a strong impression on Little Pink. Why do you say so? The pink candle dragon proceeded to tell her about their ability to sense one another's presence. Why didn't you say so earlier? Gu Shijio was surprised to find out that the candle dragons had such a unique ability. I was in great pain at the time, and the thought did not cross my mind. Sorry. It's okay then. Gu Shijio stroked its head and gently added, So, can you tell where it is right now? I did not even bother to find out. I am too good for that guy, the pink candle dragon proudly declared. Gu Shijio was perplexed by its reply, and she knew that she would have to explain her reasoning to the creature. Silly, I need your help to sense its presence so that we can avoid it. She was equipped with the ability to teleport, so if the black candle dragon was really coming their way, she could easily teleport them to safety and keep Fan Qianxue away. At this point, her power was not on par with Fan Qianxue's. Moreover, her two companions were injured. Hence, a head-on fight should be avoided at all costs. The pink candle dragon understood her intention now, so it agreed to help. After taking a moment to sense the black candle dragon's presence, it responded with utter surprise. I can sense that it is somewhere beneath the ground, but it is moving in a direction that is getting further and further away from us. Have your senses failed you before? Gu Shijio had to make sure. No, at least not so far. Red-hot magma could be seen boiling with bubbles beneath the surface. Getting too close would roast and burn almost anyone to death. Fan Qianxue was standing next to a stream of magma, along with Little Black. Are you sure that they are hiding here? It was the one who showed him the way. Little Black firmly responded, yes. Fan Qianxue was quite puzzled, for he had not dealt with Gu Shijio enough to know that she possessed the ability to survive in magma. However, he chose to believe that Little Black's instruction was correct. Wait for me here. I will get down there to check it out. Fan Qianxue gave Little Black a gentle tap before diving into the burning hot liquid. Little Black's emotionless face suddenly broke into a smile. It was certainly unhappy with its master right now. He promised to keep Little Pink alive but ended up going against his own words. The pink creature had to suffer the pain of being turned into a hedgehog. Comments, 2, Elciago 38 good for you Little Black. Thumbs up beaming face with smiling eyes but should you worry that when your master found out that you tricked him he will punish you again? Thinking face crying face Junhetre **** we. Sweet Little Black Candle Dragon. Chapter 2983, Another One Bites the Dust 2. If Gu Shijio had not arrived in time, Little Pink would have been long dead. It seemed the fortune was on its side as the Black Candle Dragon was now also irritated by his master's betrayal as he attacked the Pink Candle Dragon despite promising not to hurt it. Additionally, its master had disregarded the trust that they had both built over the years by controlling the Candle Dragon against its will. The man was ruthless to it, so it wanted to return the favor to him. He insisted on finding Gu Shijio, so it decided to guide him farther away instead. Besides trying to get back at its master, Little Black also felt the need to protect the one it loved. The further away it brought its master, the safer she would be. The thought of Little Pink being killed definitely worried it. Meanwhile, the pool of magma in front of it now was vast. Fan Qianxue had spent a significant amount of time searching through the boiling hot magma. Little Black began to worry as there were no signs of movements on the surface of the magma. Had the magma melted the man? Why hadn't he emerged? Logically speaking, Fan Qianxue would remain unharmed even if the magma suddenly became crazily hot. His kung fu was far too good to allow him to succumb to the heat, but the oddity of the desert shook its faith about his abilities. Many things could still go wrong. Little Black only intended to mislead him and had no intention to take its master's life. Therefore, the longer it waited, the more impatient it became. Candle dragons were born with tough scales that were impenetrable by water or fire. Little Black, however, was quite afraid of the heat. Hence, it refused to get too close. But after waiting for some time, it wondered if it should go in and check on Fan Qianxue. While it was still trapped in its anxiety, a man could be seen rising from the magma. Fan Qianxue was back, and definitely alive. Little Black quickly hid its face behind its claws for a moment for it to regain its composure. It had to keep calm as if nothing had happened. They are not in there, Fan Qianshi announced while gracefully making his landing. Little Black, what do you have to say for yourself? Maybe you have not searched the place thoroughly enough, Little Black calmly replied. I have searched everywhere. It was more than thorough. I have been to every corner and every stream. Honestly, did you lie to me? I dare not, master. I would not do that, Little Black answered in a flat tone that made it sound like it was still under the control of its master. Triggered, Fan Qianshi gave its head a hard slap. Stop acting. I saw how uneasy you were earlier. Lying to your master is a terrible act of disgrace. Little Black had nothing more to say, for its intention had been revealed. At this point, it was letting go of all of its frustration. So what if I lied to you? Haven't you been lying to me as well? I will not show you the way to Little Pink. I cannot let you do any harm to her. I dare you to control me again. Fan Qianshi was speechless. The creature had shown dogged determination not to change its attitude. With that, Fan Qianshi turned around and left. I can still locate them even without your help. Soon, he returned to the surface and did not turn back. He created a blood butterfly on the spot. The butterfly fluttered gracefully and stopped by his fingertip. A scale was presented to the butterfly to take a sniff of the creature's scent. Just when the blood butterfly was about to take flight, Little Black reached out to it hastily and shattered it into pieces. How dare you rebel against me? Fan Qianshi cursed. I will not let you get Little Pink into trouble. Little Black exclaimed in a fury. Fan Qianshi calmly replied, I can create as many of these butterflies as I want. Destroying one will not stop anything. With a flip on his wrist, another blood butterfly was created on his fingertip. When will you ever let it go? Little Black clenched its claws in frustration. Chapter 2983. Another one bites the dust, too. If Gu Shijio had not arrived in time, Little Pink would have been long dead. It seemed the fortune was on its side as the Black Candle Dragon was now also irritated by his master's betrayal as he attacked the Pink Candle Dragon despite promising not to hurt it. Additionally, its master had disregarded the trust that they had both built over the years by controlling the Candle Dragon against its will. The man was ruthless to it, so it wanted to return the favor to him. He insisted on finding Gu Shijio, so it decided to guide him farther away instead. Besides trying to get back at its master, Little Black also felt the need to protect the one it loved. The further away it brought its master, the safer she would be. The thought of Little Pink being killed definitely worried it. Meanwhile, the pool of magma in front of it now was vast. Fan Qianshi had spent a significant amount of time searching through the boiling hot magma. Little Black began to worry as there were no signs of movements on the surface of the magma. Had the magma melted the man? Why hadn't he emerged? Logically speaking, Fan Qianshi would remain unharmed even if the magma suddenly became crazily hot. His kung fu was far too good to allow him to succumb to the heat, but the oddity of the desert shook its faith about his abilities. Many things could still go wrong. Little Black only intended to mislead him and had no intention to take its master's life. Therefore, the longer it waited, the more impatient it became. Candle dragons were born with tough scales that were impenetrable by water or fire. Little Black, however, was quite afraid of the heat. Hence, it refused to get too close. But after waiting for some time, it wondered if it should go in and check on Fan Qianshi. While it was still trapped in its anxiety, a man could be seen rising from the magma. Fan Qianshi was back, and definitely alive. Little Black quickly hid its face behind its claws for a moment for it to regain its composure. It had to keep calm as if nothing had happened. They are not in there, Fan Qianshi announced while gracefully making his landing. Little Black, what do you have to say for yourself? Maybe you have not searched the place thoroughly enough, Little Black calmly replied. I have searched everywhere. It was more than thorough. I have been to every corner and every stream. Honestly, did you lie to me? I dare not, master. I would not do that, Little Black answered in a flat tone that made it sound like it was still under the control of its master. Triggered, Fan Qianshi gave its head a hard slap. Stop acting. I saw how uneasy you were earlier. Lying to your master is a terrible act of disgrace. Little Black had nothing more to say, for its intention had been revealed. At this point, it was letting go of all of its frustration. So what if I lied to you? Haven't you been lying to me as well? I will not show you the way to Little Pink. I cannot let you do any harm to her. I dare you to control me again. Fan Qianshi was speechless. The creature had shown dogged determination not to change its attitude. With that, Fan Qianshi turned around and left. I can still locate them even without your help. Soon, he returned to the surface and did not turn back. He created a blood butterfly on the spot. The butterfly fluttered gracefully and stopped by his fingertip. A scale was presented to the butterfly to take a sniff of the creature's scent. Just when the blood butterfly was about to take flight, Little Black reached out to it hastily and shattered it into pieces. How dare you rebel against me? Fan Qianshi cursed. I will not let you get Little Pink into trouble. Little Black exclaimed in a fury. Fan Qianshi calmly replied, I can create as many of these butterflies as I want. Destroying one will not stop anything. With a flip on his wrist, another blood butterfly was created on his fingertip. When will you ever let it go? Little Black clenched its claws in frustration. Chapter 2984. Another one bites the dust. 3. Show me the way and make amends for your rebellious act. If you do so, I shall spare the creature's life for your sake, as long as it stays out of my way. Fan Qianshi made a quick flick of his sleeve, and soon, the air was filled with several other butterflies. I will only offer you this opportunity once. If you miss it, I shall not spare the creature's life. 3 seconds to make your decision. 1. Little Black was dumbstruck. 2. Fan Qianshi continued with his countdown. Little Black finally surrendered. All right, I promise. I shall trust you once more, Master. But let me make this clear. If you go against your word again, that will be the end of our relationship. I will not follow you anymore, even if that spells the end of my life. Are you threatening your master? No, this is not a treat. I am only telling you what is going to happen. Their eyes locked for a moment, and Little Black had no intention to back off at all. In the end, Fan Qianshi gave in first. Don't worry. I will do as promised. Now show me the way. They were back to the vast, desolate area of sand. Fan Qianshi took a quick look around the place before looking at Little Black for an answer. They were here. I am not lying to you. Little Black defended itself. Fan Qianshi looked around the place before he replied, I know that you are not lying. I can catch some traces of the creature's scent. There was no one around, though. There were 2 possibilities in Fan Qianshi's mind. The first scenario, Gu Shijio was with Di Hao, but they had now parted ways with the silly pink creature. The second scenario, all 3 of them were still together, but Gu Shijio did not manage to mask all of their traces. Therefore, the candle dragon's scent was left behind. Thinking about the 2 possibilities, it seemed unlikely for Gu Shijio to travel on her own since the pink candle dragon was probably their exit ticket. Fan Qianshi was quite troubled by the thought. He had experienced Gu Zijia's uncanny escapes far too many times. In addition to her wits, her teleportation skill often turned his pursuits into futile efforts. Little Black was able to sense Little Pink's location, and the connection was mutual. Therefore, as soon as Gu Shijio knew that Little Black was approaching, she would be able to make her escape. Running away was very easy with her magical teleportation skill. In that case, if he stuck to the same strategy, he would never be able to catch her. Therefore, he needed to create some sort of distraction. Try again and see where they are right now, will you? He finally broke the silence. After a while, Little Black pointed in a particular direction. It was about 100 miles from where they were right now. Unexpectedly, Fan Qianshi raised his hand to cast a spell on Little Black, making it numb and unable to move. Little Black, stay here. I will go to them myself. In the blink of an eye, he was already almost at the location. Before he left, he kindly offered Little Black a big umbrella to shelter it from the fierce sun. You can take a short nap here if you like. Little Black acknowledged in silence. The black candle dragon is not moving anymore. The pink candle dragon made a swift report. Have they stopped pursuing us, knowing they will never make it? It looked at Gu Shijio with hopeful eyes. Gu Shijio did not think so, for Fan Qianxue was not the kind of man who would stop trying. Is it not moving at all? Yes, like a statue. It has not moved an inch. Gu Shijio realized immediately that something was not right. Quickly, she grabbed them with both hands and said, Fan Qianxue is on his own now. We have to go. She used her teleportation skill right away. Fan Qianxue made his way there just as she left. In fact, he had made himself invisible to help in his pursuit. Chapter 2985. Another one bites the dust. 4. Once again, he only managed to find their traces. All three of them were gone and nowhere to be seen. Frustrated, Fan Qianxue clenched his fists firmly. Gu Shijio always managed to escape from him. Her predictions were always incredibly accurate. With a sigh, he decided to cast another blood butterfly. The little creature could be seen sniffling the scale on his fingertip for a long while. However, instead of flying off to find the target, it surrounded him stubbornly with no intention to leave. Apparently, the spell would not work here. It only managed to help him convince Little Black to help. Little Black was murmuring curses about its master by the time he came back. It was definitely considered a swift return. It was about from his expression that he was annoyed. Another one bit the dust, obviously. Little Black was quite irritated by the scorching sun, but all of its irritation went away as soon as it saw how annoyed its master looked. Fan Qianxue finally let go of its chains. Check and see where they are. Without further ado, Little Black quickly worked its magic and began searching. It did not take long for the creature to point in a specific direction. It then returned to its original position, waiting to be chained again. To its surprise, Fan Qianxue did not intend to confine it with chains again. Follow in that direction and run 100 miles, he commanded while pointing in the opposite direction. Little Black gave him a confused look but decided not to ask any further. It did as told and started running. Fan Qianxue then followed the direction that was provided by Little Black. My lord, the black creature is suddenly going south, Little Pink reported. Gu Shijio smiled victoriously. Let's mislead them. She then scooped both of them up and started running away. Fan Qianxue found nothing, yet again. For a moment, he stood in contemplation, trying very hard to suppress his anger before going back to find Little Black. Quickly, he developed a pattern from then on. Sometimes, he would travel with Little Black, and other times, he would travel alone. Occasionally, one of them would stay and wait. However, regardless of his attempts, Gu Shijio would always foresee his plans and make proper escapes. Fan Qianxue tried to stay composed, but could not hold back his frustration any longer. He started to doubt Little Black's loyalty. Perhaps it had betrayed him and exposed his whereabouts to Gu Shijio, which put his pursuits in vain. Determined, he decided to read Little Black's memory to prove its innocence. If it was indeed a traitor who had been working with his opponent's candle dragon, he could easily find out by reading its memory. But the results showed that it was not a traitor, which baffled him even more. Had Gu Shijio put some sort of tracking device on him? How did she manage to escape in time, all the time? Gu Shijio was enjoying her bottle of honey water in a tent, along with Di Hao, whose soul was now in its solid form. He was able to eat and drink like anyone else, so he sat comfortably with his mom. As for the pink candle dragon, it had its own bucket of honey water too. Years of living in the desert had been tough. For the first time, it felt like life could actually be quite enjoyable. Life finally had a purpose. It was born with thick skin, which allowed it to recover from injuries very quickly. After 3 days, most of its wounds had almost recovered. Watching its two companions, it could not help but feel a little touched by what Gu Shijio had done for it. The lady seemed fragile, but she never gave up on a friend. Under such difficult circumstances, she never abandoned it. In fact, in every journey, she would carry its big-sized body along. It still looked like a giant python that was almost 10 feet long, even though it was already an extensively shrunken size of its original form. The lady treated its wounds and even gave it food and water. Being treated like a comrade made the pink candle dragon feel very moved. In that brief period, the pink candle dragon had made up its mind. From now on, the lady would be its master. It would follow her for life. Chapter 2986. Working together, it took a look again at its bucket of honey water and was baffled. Like a treasure box, she had an endless supply of great stuff. What it did not know was that Gu Zijia's frequent experience of hunger had taught her to be well prepared. Her storage bag was always filled with food, no matter where she was going. The supply was even enough to last the pink candle dragon for years. Di Hao sat in contemplation. He was not curious about the enormous amount of food that his mother had, but had other thoughts in his mind. "Mother, how did you find me here? Where are father and Shuyue?" Obviously, he was more concerned about his family. Gu Shijio sighed. "Your soul disappeared so suddenly without any warning. It was a rather painful search for your father and I. He had to use a forbidden spell to locate you, only to realize that you were no longer in the Starry Crescent land, which prompted us to think that Fan Qianshi must be involved. We returned to the upper bound to look through the history books in the Biwu Palace, thinking that Fan Qianshi's hideout must be written down somewhere. Fortunately, their efforts were not in vain. Fan Qianshi's hideout was a secret to many, but not to Di Fuya's father, Shinjioli. The Divine Lord was renowned for his very broad knowledge about everything in the world. From one of his written books, we found a place, which was known to be the residence of the god of creation. They decided to leave Di Shuyue in Biwu Palace for her safety, where the majestic beasts could safely guard her. Their journey thence began. Quickly, they found the residence. However, there was nothing left in there. Di Fui looked into every little detail that he could find and noticed that there were still many things that bore Fan Qianshi's scent. After all, he had spent many years there. Di Fui collected his scent to perform a spell that allowed him to look through the images that had been happening for the past month. There was a scene where the black candle dragon could be seen withdrawing Di Hao's soul from his body. Then he saw the desert. Millions of deserts could exist in the vast universe, so they couldn't search through the deserts, one by one. Fortunately, Bai Zhe and the flying serpent had the ability to track down the candle dragon via its scent. They decided to follow its tracks. At the same time, Fan Qianshi was looking for the boy as well. He had been to many deserts, thus leaving his scent behind wherever he went. The journey was unexpectedly extended due to this unforeseen circumstance. Hence, Gu Shijio and Di Fui had to go on separate paths to increase the efficiency of their painstaking search. Each with a majestic beast, they agreed to notify one another when the boy was found. The continent where Di Hao was trapped in was not exactly an immense space. It was a small one as compared to other existing continents, making it easier to be overlooked. Gu Shijio and the flying serpent had passed by the continent twice, but they never noticed the place. Fan Qianshi and Little Black were the first ones that found out about the place, thus guiding the flying serpent with their scent. The place seemed rather odd, and to be honest, Gu Shijio was not feeling all that great about the place. Sorrow filled her heart as soon as she landed. It was not the best feeling to have anywhere. In fact, all she wanted was to leave. But as much as she would like to leave, she had to stay, for the sake of her son's safety. She was told about the oddity of the waterless, desolate area of sand by the people in the area. Meanwhile, the flying serpent also caught Little Black's scent in the desert. Like Fan Qianshi, Gu Shijio was doubtful of the desert. She refused to believe that she would be trapped. Nevertheless, just to be safe, she decided to keep the flying serpent outside while she went in to continue the search for her son. Before they parted ways, they agreed that 5 days would be the limit. 5 days were surely all she needed to escape if everything went according to plan. If she took any longer than 5 days, the flying serpent would have to inform Di Fui immediately so that he could come to the rescue. 3 days had gone by, so the flying serpent should still be outside, and Di Fui would still be unaware of her situation. Chapter 2987, Working Together, 2. As soon as she located Di Hao, she wanted to inform Di Fui or the flying serpent. However, the desert appeared to be a forbidden land with a wizardry barrier that prevented all means of communication with the outside world. Even as she was practically playing hide and seek with Fan Qianshi, she never stopped trying to crack the wizardry barrier, but nothing seemed to work. Like Fan Qianshi, she could not locate the edge of the desert, nor could she escape through the sky. She wanted to find the god of demons as she believed that would be the way out. However, even the pink candle dragon did not know the way out despite being in the desert for countless years. Apparently, the demon appeared and disappeared out of the blue. Another day went by. Gu Shijio sat on the sand and looked annoyed at the scorching sun. She could not wait to leave the place. Her extensive life experience had taught her to be a tough woman. In fact, nothing could really make her feel sad, but there was something about the desert that kept pulling her down. A feeling of deep distress kept befalling her. "Master, why are you crying?" Little Pink got close and stared at her in bafflement. Gu Shijio wiped her eyes, only to realize that she was indeed tearing up. She shook her sorrow away and stood right up at once. "I am not crying. I have sand in my eyes. Why does the man keep pursuing us when none of us can get out of here?" Little Pink was quite troubled. "He is a lunatic," Gu Shijio commented on Fan Qianshi's behavior. Due to Fan Qianshi's stubborn pursuit, Gu Shijio became reluctant to build a tent. She had to teleport every few minutes so that he had no way to pinpoint her exact location. Things would have been much more comfortable with a tent. Little Pink must have been bored interacting with Di Hao, who was now quietly working on his recovery, so it decided to approach Gu Shijio instead. Won't he get tired of the endless pursuit? A lunatic knows nothing about being tired. Little Pink thought about the situation for a moment and became quite eager to leave. "How I wish I could get out of here. I have been looking forward to returning to the outside world." "Master, the demon looks exactly like you. Could she be an embodiment of your previous life?" Dumbfounded, Gu Shijio had never met the woman, so she had no idea how much they actually resembled one another. She pondered about the possibilities for a moment and then added, "I don't think so. If the demon resembled my previous life, how could I even come into existence when she was still around? Perhaps she was not an embodiment, but a form of obsession that lingered on." "Master, have you had any obsession that you did not achieve?" Gu Shijio thought about it seriously, but nothing came to mind. No. She had a loving husband and 2 adorable children. There was nothing more that she could ask for. There was only one thing that she desperately wished for. "I hope that Fan Qianshi can just disappear from the world. I never want to see him again." She could not help but express the amount of hatred that she had for this peculiar man. The pink candle dragon quietly agreed. After that, Gu Shijio stood up abruptly and began yawning. "Let's move," she addressed her comrades. Then she reached out and held Di Hao's hand. At the same time, the pink candle dragon also reached out its claw to her. "Master, don't forget about me." "Of course." Gu Shijio took its claw as well. All of a sudden, the pink candle dragon experienced a sharp pain on its body. Abruptly, the creature pulled its claw out from her grasp and retreated anxiously. "Master!" Chapter 2988. Working Together, 3. In the blink of an eye, the pink candle dragon's chubby claw appeared bruised and dirty green in color. It was obviously poisoned. "Fan Qianshi, did you really think I would not find out?" Gu Shijio said scornfully. The pink candle dragon remained quiet. All of a sudden, a glimpse of light flashed by, and the chubby creature was no longer there. Apparently, Fan Qianshi decided to reveal himself. His hand was covered in a mass of bruises. "Shijio, you truly are the smartest. There is nothing that can escape your eyes. Look at what you have done to me, all because of one careless mistake." He sighed. While he talked, he never stopped extracting the poisoned blood from his veins. Was he really the god of creation? She realized that their strengths were indeed incomparable. In fact, there was no chance for her to win if she chose to fight him face to face. The best chance of survival was to flee, but she could not leave the pink candle dragon behind. Fan Qianshi seemed to have read Gu Zijia's concern. Shijio, don't you try to run away from me again, or I will skin the creature. He reached to the side and pulled the pink candle dragon out of nowhere. It was clearly unconscious, and its entire body turned red due to the dilation of its blood vessels. Also, it was drenched in sweat. Gu Shijio was shocked. Fan Qianshi, no living thing should be kept in a storage bag. How could you put it in there? The pink candle dragon would be dead if it were trapped any longer. Oh really? No living thing is allowed? Fan Qianshi wiped the sweat away with his finger and continued rather ironically, no wonder it is drenched. He then looked at Gu Shijio and continued, Shijio, stop running away, will you? Otherwise, I will have to keep it away in my storage bag again while I go after you. As you may already know, I am a rather lazy and clumsy person. I may forget to take it out to get some fresh air. Who knows how long it would be left in there? Read more chapters at List Novel. It was a firm threat, and Gu Shijio knew that Fan Qianshi was surely capable of inflicting such hostile pain on the poor creature. Therefore, she would no longer run away. I did not want to run at first, but your tireless pursuit quite entertained me, so I decided to play along, she added with a polite smile. She began yawning again, seeming out of boredom. We are not getting out of this place, anyway. So, your pursuit seems insignificant. What good can it do? Where is Di Fui? Fan Qianshi asked. He and I have parted ways. We were supposed to contact each other when Di Hao was found. However, apparently getting into this place is a one-way ticket. All means of communication fail miserably. I cannot send out any messages to him at all. Fan Qianshi could not tell if she was telling the truth or not. Fan Qianshi, we are both trapped here. Shall we cease our fight for now? We should work together to find a way out. Our feuds can wait. Gu Shijio took another look at the harsh sun and suggested, 2 brains are better than 1, right? She had a point. You're right. Killing you here would be meaningless if I cannot make it out in the end. I might die of boredom from having no one around, Fan Qianshi agreed. He then reached out to her and said, if we are going to work together, you need to show your sincerity. What do you mean exactly? Do you still have your favorite sour plum wine? I shall have 2 bottles. Dumbstruck, Gu Shijio did not expect that wine was all that he would ask for. Chapter 2989. Scheming against one another. Gu Shijio did not bother to reply. Her storage bag was never short of wine, especially those that she enjoyed. In fact, she had a habit of stocking up a great supply of wine wherever she went. Slightly annoyed by the request, she threw 2 bottles of wine to him. Fan Qianshi caught the bottles and started sniffing them with his eyes closed as if reminiscing about the past. It has been a while. I miss the taste. Gu Shijio did not answer him again. Sour plum wine was not something uncommon in the 6 worlds. It was available almost everywhere. It could not be difficult for him to obtain the wine, so it was a rather odd request. Was he going to play some tricks again? Di Hao knew that the man was up to no good, but he did not say anything. Fan Qianshi turned the bottle open in an eager urge to drink the wine but paused for a minute as if wondering if he would regret consuming it so soon. Gu Shijio offered another bottle to him. Just drink it. Fan Qianshi received the bottle and continued, are you feeling bad for me? He studied at her expression fixedly. Gu Shijio did not answer, for he was obviously overthinking the situation. With a smile, she continued, now that we are working together, I can be more accommodating. I have plenty of wine. If you'd like more, just say it. Her smile was all Fan Qianshi could focus on at that moment. He looked away and turned his attention to the wine again. With a sip, he started savoring the wine. Master, I would like some too. I like this wine, the pink candle dragon requested for some as it was craving for a drink. Gu Shijio softly patted its head. Haven't I given you a large bottle earlier? How did you finish it so quickly? The wine is delicious. Also, I am a heavy drinker, the pink candle dragon awkwardly replied. Hearing its reply, Gu Shijio offered it an extra large-sized bottle of wine. All right, this is all for you then. Delighted, the pink candle dragon opened the bottle and downed it all in one go. The tantalizing scent of the wine was widespread at that moment. With his eyes closed, Fan Qianshi could smell it in the air. The wine that the pink candle dragon had was the same quality as the one he had, but the amount was 10 times more than the bottle in his hand. Apparently, Gu Shijiu really did have plenty of wine. The way she gave it away was absolutely generous. Quickly, he finished off his bottle before asking for another one. "Pleasure to work with you, comrade. May I have another bottle?" Di Hao was greatly astonished by the power of wine in bringing people together. A few bottles were able to build a temporary connection between two enemies who always wanted to kill one another. Gu Shijiu was ready to work with Fan Qianshi, for sure. Therefore, she did not mind giving out another bottle to him. "Pleasure working with you too." Before she could finish speaking, someone was already grasping her by the wrist. As swift as a shadow, Fan Qianshi's arm had extended over 2 feet long to seize her wrist and seal her acupuncture point. By sealing it, her qi reservoir became inaccessible, so she could no longer use her spiritual power. In an instant, her legs became jelly-like, as she had lost half of her strength in 1 second. She did not collapse entirely before the bottle in Fan Qianshi's hand suddenly exploded. Countless tiny hair-like needles blew out from the bottle and stung him right on the chest. It was normal for powerful people like Fan Qianshi to always protect themselves with a wizardry barrier that could prevent all physical harm from sudden attacks. However, the secret weapon that Gu Shijiu had was nothing ordinary. Di Fui produced the needle-like weapon only recently and immediately gave it to her. According to him, the secret weapon was able to break through any forms of wizardry barriers that were used to protect individuals. The only downside was that the weapon could only be used once, for the material was extremely rare. Chapter 2990, Scheming Against One Another, 2. Gu Shijiu treated the item like a treasure and was reluctant to use it. However, the best opportunity happened to present itself, and she could not hold back. It was a good time to put the needles to use as Fan Qianshi never saw it coming. It was truly a coincidence that both of them decided to turn hostile at the same time. Their brief moment of connection over wine had been completely shattered in an instant. Gu Zijia's spiritual power became inaccessible, while Fan Qianshi, on the other hand, was greatly affected by the needles. His head went blank, while his body became numb. He could no longer keep his balance and started to sway as he walked. She, too, was swaying a little but managed to take a few steps back to keep her balance. Judging from the current situation, Gu Shijiu seemed to be on the advantageous side. The pink candle dragon was impressed. "Kill him, and him now." The pink candle dragon hated the man thoroughly. It started chanting for his death. Without further ado, it jumped straight into the attack with its mouth wide open in an attempt to crush the man into many tiny pieces. No way! Gu Shijiu had to pull its lantern to stop it from biting him. The pink candle dragon was totally bewildered. "Why can't I kill him? This man is wicked. If we do not kill him now, there will be consequences. He is now affected by the numbing drugs. If you bite him, you will be affected just the same." Gu Shijiu then dragged Little Pink away. The amount of drugs that she applied on the needles was able to take down an entire tyrannosaur. Just one tiny scratch on his skin would put the pink candle dragon down. Convinced by her explanation, the pink candle dragon finally gave up on the idea of sinking its teeth into his skin, but it refused to stand aside and do nothing. Swiftly, it dispensed a layer of poisonous pink fog around Fan Qianshi from its mouth. Read more chapters at List Novel. The poisonous fog was known to corrode all sorts of things with its high acidity. Fan Qianshi was submerged in the pink, toxic air, but it was not able to do him any harm. Instead, it woke him right up from unconsciousness. He opened his eyes and saw Gu Shijiu, who was standing close by. "I thought we agreed to work together. How could you attack me so sneakily?" "You too did the same to me," Gu Shijiu replied with heavy irony. "What do you plan to do with me? Do you want to end my life?" Fan Qianshi locked his eyes to hers. Gu Shijiu displayed a red sword before his eyes before answering, "You are right. Are you really going to kill me, though? Let's find out." In an instant, The sword in Gu Zijia's hand rose into the air and aimed itself straight at Fan Qianqi's neck. It was meant to be a deadly attack. The sword was specially designed to kill evil people and spirits. She was confident that it would be a fatal hit, as Fan Qianshi was still unable to move. Even if she could not kill him, he would at least be critically injured to prevent him from playing any tricks. As soon as she waved her sword down to attack, blood could be seen spilling everywhere as if a man had just been beheaded. Gu Shijio was quite surprised as everything happened way too easily. "Mother, watch out!" Di Hao called out loud. A sword could be seen heading for her feet. Alarmed, Gu Shijio noticed the danger. She wanted to teleport away, but a pair of hands from the ground secured her ankles, making her unable to move. Di Hao aimed his sword at the hands, but it was not made of flesh. Unexpectedly, his sword made a clanging sound as if it crashed into some sort of metal and bounced back to him with great intensity. He almost cut himself with the sword. Those hands did not stop right. With a strong pull, Gu Shijio was shoved onto the ground hastily. It was not utilizing the ground drilling technique, but in an instant, Gu Shijio was already buried deep in the yellow sand. She held her breath and made a few quick kicks to free herself, but it did not work. She then bent her body forward so that she could attack the hands that were still securing her ankles. However, someone could be heard chuckling at her attempt. The hands on her ankles suddenly let go and pushed her feet upward. If Gu Shijio missed the hands, she would most probably have hit her own legs and became disabled. Fortunately, she was able to stop herself in time. However, those hands from the ground seized the chance and threw her forward. Chapter 2991. Scheming Against One Another, 3. Fortunately, she was able to stop herself in time. However, those hands from the ground seized the chance and threw her forward. It was not long before the hands started violently attacking her. Gu Zijia's acupuncture points had been sealed off, thus restricting her movements once again. Another arm reached out to secure her waist tightly. There was so much pressure on her hand that she could feel her waist aching. "Gu Shijio, I did not expect that you would hit me with such deadly strikes." Fan Qianqi's voice started to ring in her ears. He sounded annoyed. "I could say the same to you." Gu Shijio was already drenched in a cold sweat. She could finally be honest with her thoughts, for they had already shed all pretenses of cordiality. To her surprise, Fan Qianqi's spiritual level was powerful enough for him to create another embodiment mistakable as his true self. Apparently, she had been completely fooled. "How are we the same? You wanted me dead, but I could never have the heart to hurt you." Fan Qianshi seemed annoyed and heartbroken at the same time. "Gu Shijio, you have always been so harsh," he said while pulling her even closer to him. Gu Shijio felt as if iron shackles had tightly chained her waist. The joints on her backbone could be heard popping and cracking due to the pressure. Fan Qianshi was obviously punishing her as he had sealed away all of her acupuncture points so that she could not access her spiritual power. Without any spiritual power, she needed air to stay alive, but he was holding her tightly beneath the ground without the use of any proper ground drilling. They were both squeezed in the sand without any air. Also, the way he held her made it even difficult for her to breathe. Fortunately, her physical body was at the level of a great deity, which granted her a certain level of immortality. Otherwise, she would be long dead from suffocation. Gu Shijio felt as if she were being buried alive. It was a terrible feeling. The color from her face began to flush, and soon she turned pale. It did not take long for her to start coughing out blood. Fan Qianshi watched icily as her body began to fail, but he did not intend for her to die, so he started casting some spells. "Let her go." The sand was parted to the sides. Di Hao could be seen approaching them, though still looking quite pale. There was a bent blade in his hand with the sharp edge aimed directly at Fan Qianshi. Fan Qianshi looked at Di Hao in utter disbelief. "Isn't that the world-cutting blade from the master of the heavenly law? How did you get this?" "Good. It seems you understand the power of this weapon. Now let go of her, or I will use this blade right now, and we shall all perish together," Di Hao sternly said. Let's talk outside. She cannot hold on much longer. Fan Qianshi then brought her out of the sandy ground. Di Hao stayed close to them the entire time. Master! The pink candle dragon rushed forward in an attempt to take Gu Shijio out from his arms. Fan Qianshi simply waved his hand in the air to create a mobile vortex of rotating winds, and the candle dragon was immediately sent far away by the gusts of wind. It crashed into the ground and had to stay low for a moment to regain its strength. Fan Qianshi, don't you think it is a shame for you to use your power as the god of creation against a helpless candle dragon? It is too noisy. Fan Qianshi did not care about the pink candle dragon at all. He only kept it alive because of his promise to Little Black. Otherwise, the vortex of rotating winds that he had just summoned would be much more violent, enough to shed its flesh into pieces. Swiftly, he continued to seal off dozens of acupuncture points on Gu Zijia's body to take away her mobility. Little Shijio, don't you try to play any tricks. You can no longer get away from me, he said while putting her down on the ground. With an additional wizardry barrier cast around her, no one would be able to get close to her. He then turned his attention to Di Hao and started mocking him. I did not expect to see you with this blade. I have been underestimating you for sure. However, it cannot be simply used by anyone. Do you know how to use it? We can test your hypothesis, Di Hao said with a smile. He held the blade tightly in his hand, and a steady flow of blood was then drawn from his fingertip to the sharp edge of the blade, thus igniting the blade into a glowing metal. Chapter 2992, Scheming Against One Another, 4. Soon, glimpses of 7-colored rays flashed right through the blade and blasted up into the air. Like a dragon that had just been released, it uttered a long and loud cry before reaching into the sky. The calmness of the desert disappeared all at once as strong winds started to storm around the surface, along with rolls of dark clouds filling the sky. Bolts of 7-colored lightning started to scatter within the heavy clouds. Stop! Stop it! Fan Qianshi suddenly called out loud with a sense of emergency. Di Hao held the blade with both hands and gave it a swing. At the same time, the 7-colored ray from the blade disappeared. As soon as the 7-colored ray faded away, the clouds began to disperse as well, leaving the fierce sun to burn the ground once again. Fan Qianshi looked at Di Hao, who was still in his small-sized body. Di Hao fixed his eyes on him as well, in a composed manner. His toddler appearance did not affect his tremendous source of power at all. In an instant, the child's aura was completely different. He was strong, mysterious, and even intimidating, like a god who was overlooking the world. The pink candle dragon had just got back on its feet, but knelt back down and touched the ground with its forehead as soon as it saw Di Hao. From afar, the black candle dragon noticed the change as well, so it faced Di Hao's direction and began kneeling. Only the master of heavenly law had such powers. Fan Qianshi began to panic. How is this even possible? Di Hao continued to play with the 7-colored blade in his hand, shedding gleams and dazzling lights on his little face. Nothing is impossible. Fan Qianshi, you should be very well aware of what the blade can do. Don't you try to challenge my patience. The world-cutting blade was a secret weapon that only belonged to the master of the heavenly law, with an ability to create immensely powerful destruction. Once used, all of the living things in the same space would be wiped off, except for the master of the heavenly law himself. Fan Qianshi witnessed the actual power of the blade once, in a world where all kinds of ferocious beasts triumphed the earth. They were too stubborn to be taught and trained, so, to prevent its negative influence from spreading to another world, Di Fui had to use the blade. All living things were completely wiped off to zero existence, making the blade a legitimate weapon of total destruction. Fan Qianshi could never forget what the blade could do. Back then, when Di Fui was still a friend, Fan Qianshi once asked for the blade out of curiosity. Di Fui did not hesitate to pass the blade to him. However, he could not even hold the blade up. In an unexpected turn, the blade started chasing him around like he was an enemy. The pursuit finally came to an end when Di Fui took back possession of the blade. Di Fui once told him that only the master of the heavenly law could put the blade to use. It would not work for others. Anyone who tried to take the blade by force would have to face the consequences. Seeing Di Hao with the blade certainly came as a shock to Fan Qianshi. Utterly distressed, he could not figure out if what Di Fui told him in the past was a lie, or if the child was indeed the master of the heavenly law. There would only be one master of the heavenly law. Even when Di Fui was reincarnated in another life, as long as his soul remained, the master of the heavenly law would still be him. Di Fui was well and alive, so this fact certainly baffled Fan Qianshi. Who exactly was Di Hao? Fan Qianshi had no answers to all of his questions, so he threw a glance at Gu Shijio and caught her staring at the child in astonishment. It would seem that she was unaware of the child's identity too. Let's make peace, shall we? Fan Qianshi smilingly offered. Di Hao was a little surprised. Di Hao, with one quick use of this blade, all of the living things in this continent will come to an end as you know it, which includes your mother here. Instead of being destroyed indiscriminately, I think we should work together and find a way to escape from this bloody place. A cold voice interrupted. No one can ever leave this place. All of you are staying here with me. They turned around and saw a lady standing gracefully at the side. Chapter 2993. Who are you? Her snowy white dress looked even clearer and brighter than the fluffy white clouds in the sky. However, some parts of her dress were, unfortunately, stained with blood. They were unsure if those stains were actually blood or just some splashes that were added as decorations. Her pitch-black hair and supple red lips created a strong contrast to her ghostly pallor. Like hollows of darkness, there was almost no white in her eyes. In fact, a quick look into her eyes was enough to capture one's soul. Gu Shijio was trying to release her acupuncture points that were disabled by Fan Qianshi when the lady suddenly made her appearance. Surprisingly, the lady looked exactly the same as her. The only difference was that the lady seemed to have immense dark power. The look in her eyes seemed to contain an abyss of great sorrows. What a shame! As soon as the lady appeared, feelings of great distress began to develop in Gu Zijia's heart. Also, the weather began to change dramatically, as usual, while thick layers of gray clouds obscured the sun. Gusts of wind swept through the desert, creating howls from the gale. Gu Zijia's mind went blank at once. She did not know how the others felt but did not feel quite right. Feelings of sorrow and grief suddenly overwhelmed her, as if she had just been abandoned by the whole world, trapped in a place with no way out. The depression signaled a prelude to a complete breakdown for Gu Shijio. She felt the need to destroy the world. She wanted the world to end by her hand. She knew that it was all because of the lattice presence, which was powerful enough to affect her in such a detrimental way. She had been through many things and fought many creatures before, so the manipulation of emotions was not something she had not come across before. The tactic was targeted at the opponent's mood, thus driving them nuts with a disturbed state of mind. In the past, she was always resilient enough to resist any emotional manipulation. But this time was completely different. She knew that something was wrong, but she could not get rid of the great sorrows that were building in her heart. Was it because she was injured? Fan Qianshi did not let her die of suffocation earlier, so her body was critically injured. Also, most of her acupuncture points were sealed, thus disabling her ability to set her mind straight in this time of great distress. She knew that she should stay focused on her recovery. However, the sadness in her heart was too much for her to manage. She could not keep calm at all with a multitude of things going on, and it would probably only make things worse. Determined, Gu Shijio gave her tongue a hard bite to try to wake herself up. You can start to think about the happy times when you experience a disturbed state of mind, like those times that we spent lovingly one another or the joy that our children have brought to our lives. She was reminded of Di Fui's advice. Fan Qianshi had the ability to control one's state of mind. He even had a bad history of abusing dark magic to control one's emotions. In order to prevent Gu Shijio from falling into his trap, Di Fui once taught her a way to filter her thoughts to stay composed. Additionally, with the aid of a spell, she could always regain control very quickly. Di Fui's images started to linger in her head. She started reminiscing his every smile, kiss, and shared affection. He was her strongest support, so as long as he was around, there was nothing she was afraid of. With a smile, her heart was instantly filled with joy and happiness. The feelings of depression had slowly faded. "What are you smiling at?" A clear voice echoed in her ears. Gu Shijio looked up and was shocked. The lady was standing right in front of her and looking down at her in a condescending manner. Flashes of red light glimpsed in her black eyes at the time. Looking at someone who had the same appearance made Gu Shijio feel rather uncomfortable. It was as if she was looking into a horror mirror. "Who are you?" Gu Shijio asked abruptly. The lady looked a little lost as well. "Who are you?" She echoed her words. "You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.